Welcome everybody to another episode of HLTV Confirmed. My name is James Banks and I am your host, and as always I have the wonderful Sponge, Striker and Professor joining me to talk all things Counter-Strike. So guys, how are we doing? We had a pretty crazy week last week in terms of the minors.
Which one of us is wonderful?
Probably not you now you've mentioned it.
Ah, bugger. Alright.
I see her in HD now, pretty clear and all of that. You came into like the 21st century now. That's pretty good.
Shout out Pimp, he did lend me his webcam. Admittedly, I hadn't ordered one. Well, I have ordered one, but it's back in the UK and I'm in Poland.
Yeah, and I'm back home after a week spent in Katowice with you guys, so feels good.
Feels good indeed. So we're going to kick this off with kind of not a news segment, I guess, but just a different way of doing it. We're going to have some breaking news.
Drop it.
I love that. I love that. That fucking
hyped.
brings it in. Now, the breaking news is obviously the CSGO major format changes. And we're kind of looking at, is it for better or is it for worse? And the main thing I want to start with is, Striker, you spoke to Carmack while we were at the minors, so you can kind of divulge the information and break this down a little bit for us, mate.
Yeah. He just came to us and Vakarm, basically the only two press that were at the minor, and he presented us what the changes were. He was asking for a little bit of feedback as well, but just nothing too interesting about that part. But obviously the biggest changes from are just that they addressed basically every single point of criticism that people had towards the issues that were there with some major formats beforehand, or like at the previous majors. And so first of all, obviously they're going to use the team ranking, which is that like every single team before every stage, before the first two stages anyway, every single team will send in their top 16 ranking, basically from 1st to 16, and then that averages out into what the seeding will be for the first round. And on top of that, they will use that seeding in between rounds as well, with the caveat that they're basically also going to take into consideration the results, which is that, let's say Astralis lose to like the 16th seed in the first round, right? And then they will average out a little bit towards one another. So Astralis will probably move down maybe to like a 4th, 5th seed instead of being the first originally. And then the team that upset Astralis will move a little bit closer to the top, maybe like a couple of positions up based on the ELO rating that ESL introduced. And the third change, which is, I guess, is going to be the most noticed, is that more best of threes are added in basically every progression and elimination match, which is that from the 2-0 and 0-2 further, there will be best of three matches, so that nobody gets eliminated without playing a best of three, and nobody goes through without playing a best of three.
I think, with these points that we've just gone over, you just touched on it, the fact that the best of 3 point is probably going to be the biggest one noted by the community. Also, the fact that we'll be doing multiple streams, I think, is another one that, it's obviously not a format change, but it's a broadcast change as well, in the sense that there will be an A and a B stream during the major, so we can get through more games. Now, I saw some negative comments about that point. Specifically, people were stating that, obviously you won't be able to watch every game. Well, it's the same with a lot of sports. You think about tennis and stuff when you have Grand Slams on. Not every game is broadcast, and not every match is broadcast. And sometimes, if they are, there are multiple different channels or ways to be able to watch that, right? So this is pretty common throughout traditional media when it comes to competition. So that's something that people shouldn't even be making as a point. It's actually ludicrous in my mind that people say that in the first place. And then I saw negative critique about this system of having the players seed themselves, right? Look, the whole discussion and the whole thing that people are having about this collusion stuff, like, I know we want to go towards the negative because we want to make sure that it's a good system. And I could sit here and speak of why I don't think that's going to happen, because in a way you're probably just going to end up shooting yourself in the foot. But I would love to hear if somebody could come up with a better way of having teams seeded, because this here, getting them to do it themselves, you can't argue that. People at home, if all the teams sat down and they rank everybody from 1-16 and it works out in a certain way, you can't argue that. That's what the teams just did, right? If it was, say, you got a panel of experts to do it, that's subjective, right? Like, let's say they said, okay, we're going to get all of the analysts to rank the teams from 1-16, and that's what we're going to use, right? first of all, that's subjective. I might have a horse in the race. You know, like there's certain things along those lines which.
Well, yeah, look at Natu's example.
Right? Renegades.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many ties that people have. So allowing the teams to do it themselves, with obviously the system where it eliminates the outliers, I think it's fantastic because it's done in a way that. This is another point that we need to make very clear to the people at home. I've spoken to Valve several times when I've gone to majors, and talking to Valve is very difficult because I like to look at things from a perspective of this makes sense because, right? But what they make you do is they make you reverse engineer to understand like the point. And talking to Valve is a very difficult thing. It's not easy. So for ESL to be able to have gotten these changes through, they've had to make obviously compromises that work for everybody and explain to Valve why this is a really good change and what it brings. So they've had to do a shitload of work to get these changes through, and it has obviously been gradual. It's like, why has it taken until 2019 to get to this point? But I think it's good because we've been testing out different things along the way, and it finally feels like now we have a system that should make everybody happy, right? And it like you said, Striker, it takes away probably 95% of the criticisms that people have had with the formats in the past.
I think you muted out a little bit, Sponge. Not sure. Hello? I can't hear you. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, your final point just got cut off.
Yeah, didn't hear that.
Okay, well, I don't know what I was saying. I was just ranting like normal, so someone else.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, how can it even work that you kind of, if teams are ranking other teams, what is the point of, I don't know, messing up the rankings, like the seeding? How do you profit as a team from that? It feels like mega random. You might get an easier opponent if like Astralis get ranked 5th instead of 1st, where they should be. Like what's the point of that? You don't know who you're gonna actually be playing. It depends on like so many factors. So how does that even work?
You would need like the line show teams to collude, right? You would need like, say, the teams who would consider themselves in like the bottom 10 or bottom 12 to collude against the top 4 for that to be that's not going to happen in a million years. Like that's just a thing that nobody would think is possible.
And also, it's just like you said, ESL are going to remove like the biggest outliers, so that teams can't like do just like Astralis, put Astralis as 10th or like 16th or something ridiculous as that, and they're just going to remove those from the sample size basically, and that's not going to count. And another way that they can put pressure on the teams so that they actually do it properly is that they're actually going to release it publicly, which is I'm not sure if they necessarily said it in the announcement but they did it in Chicago, and they're going to do it again. Based on what Carmack told us. So that's another way to just put pressure on the teams, just make sure that they kind of think about how this will look in the public eye, right? Let's say they do put Astralis as like number 15, and that's not gonna make the community very happy. So I think this is, so far it feels like this is a very good way to just prevent teams from doing anything like that, and from it actually reflecting on the seeding of the major. So like you say, I just don't see a way where this is far from reality, right? Even when we look back to Chicago, I just went back to do the research a couple of days ago when I actually got to learn about the system being used at the major. And in Chicago, only the biggest variance compared to our ranking were like, I think it was Fnatic and a couple more teams that were like 2 spots off from their HLTV ranking, which is basically nothing. It doesn't really make a real difference. Then that was the biggest difference between the ranking and the actual seeding that they got from teams. So I feel like this is just a very good way to seed teams.
Was Fnatic higher or lower?
They were by the teams, they were ranked 2 spots higher than they were in the ranking.
I mean,
because that was
in the end, it kind of worked out because they finished top 4. So I guess it's maybe even people practicing against them and stuff like that coming into account and then working out even better than kind of the rankings do, because it just rates things we know about, and they didn't play that many tournaments. So it can also work in a positive way, even if it is kind of an outlier from default rankings. But what I wanted to ask you, Striker, since you were doing like you did the article on the Buchholz seeding that was kind of not fully used as you explained it, but it was used kind of for the FaZe major, and people didn't like it that much. Some of them did. So can you just explain like what's the difference between this? Because there's some kind of an ELO seeding that is used later on. It's kind of similar, but what's the difference there?
I mean, I guess in a general way, it works similarly in that it takes the in-tournament results into consideration. The problem with Buchholz was that it cannot be used up until the 3rd round. And even in the 3rd round, it doesn't even create matchups. It just creates like seeding pools. But the biggest difference is that the way that the ESR are going to do it for this major is that they're actually using some sort of a baseline for the start of the tournament, right? For before there are any results, or maybe when there's one result or anything, they still have that initial seeding that the teams create to use that as a baseline, and then based on the results, then they adjust those. If teams get upset or if somebody gets upset, then they'll move down and etc. So they actually have some sort of a baseline. And do take some sort of like a prediction before the event to seed the teams, as opposed to just using the in-tournament results.
Yeah, I mean the last major and all of the majors actually were seeded exclusively on previous majors.
Yeah,
that's kind of a difference there. Now we are not seeding on previous majors; we're seeding on actual like results from the past 6 months or something. So that is I think the biggest difference from between this and any other major we had before.
I wouldn't mind looking at like flow-on effects of this, right? Because if you look at it from the standpoint we have right now, and we go, okay, these are good changes and they'll be good for the tournament. Some of the critiques we've had in the past is when teams are best of one map specialists, or they've had a really good run. You can think of multiple occasions. Complexity at the London major. You can think about Big at the Krakow major is another example. There's probably a couple of others. The key thing with the change here is that best of three as the gateway. Now, I use the term gateway because the plan is to get through to the bracket stage, which assumably at this point in time, we all assume it's going to be the standard best of 3, 8-team bracket. Now, you need to be able to play best of 3s to be able to go far in that bracket, right? You need to have a map pool. So this change in the Swiss system means that if you're a best of 1 specialist now, sure, you might get an upset victory against one team. Maybe you'll do it against 2. But by the time you get to that 3rd game, you have to prove your worth in a best of 3 map pool. So we should see less of these outliers getting through. And the flow-on effect of that is actually going to keep the minors, in my mind, in a more sensible position. Now, what I mean is, you look at, we're going to talk about this later, I don't want to get into this too much right now, but the North America's minor is very diluted right now because we have so many North American teams already in the later stages of this event. Now, if Complexity was playing back in the minor system, okay, now we have an event on our hands. Now we're cooking, right? We think it might be interesting. Cloud9 are another example of a roster who, look, we know that there's been the mess there, but maybe if things went a little bit differently, they might have been down in the minor system as well. And then it's a competitive event. Same can be said for Asia. We've got Tai Lu currently who are already through. If we had Renegades, Tai Lu, Greyhound, sure, Asia has a long way to go. And I'll concede that point so the cows come home. But that is another one which is now diluted more than ever. CIS to some extent. Vega Squadron have shown their worth in the best of ones as well. So they definitely deserve to be where they are now. But this time around, they're going to have to show that worth in the best of 3s a little bit more so. So the Hellraisers, another example. These teams could be back in the minors if they just struggle. Like, this is the possibility now. So I think if we keep this format for a couple of majors, the system will correct itself. So we'll have the best. Well, now we only have what? We only have 14 teams who stay on, right? So we should have technically the best 14 teams after we see this whole major cycle happen, probably only twice, in theory. If people don't fuck up and change rosters and someone just doesn't shit the bed, that's kind of how that should affect it. And I think that's a really positive change, right? Like, I think that those things mean more than what we're just seeing right now in this tournament. It's going to affect everything in a positive way moving forward. So I can't really find any faults here. I see people making tweets about wanting to go, well, if you have all the teams in one place anyway, why don't we just do one giant minor? Now, look, I'm not going to say that's a terrible idea. I think it has a little bit of merit, but I'm going to do it from a Valve perspective or a global perspective right now and think about the scene as a whole. If you do that, and then let's say CIS, fucking NA, and Asia no longer get any teams progressing, no longer get any teams getting to the point of stickers, which a lot of pros still consider the first round of the major still the major qualifier. Yep. Then you're not being able to take what they've learned, take the capital that they've gained, and go back to your region and continue to grow it. You are literally fucking over the rest of the world from progressing in Counter-Strike because you're so narrow-minded and you can't see that. Now, look, can I say that the EU minor has a competition in terms of the minors? The CIS minor, not close. The NA minor, not close. The Asian minor, definitely not fucking close. But it's better for the world of Counter-Strike to do it this way. It's just better. You can tell me it's not as competitive, sure, but for the world of Counter-Strike, from a sensible approach, it's better. And I think that it should stay this way. And the more I am on this side of the fence, the more I start to see things from Valve's perspective, which frustrates me a little bit because I used to be very...
Hello.
You know, like I think that the more that I mature and the more that I start to understand things, it makes sense. And I also think that they're starting to give way clearly on things that we want, right? They've allowed ESL to have these massive changes, which benefits everybody. So we're starting to find a really nice middle ground. And if things continue down this path, we're the best fucking esport. The rest of you can just fuck off. But we're going to continue to be the best esport because we're actually now working on solutions that make everybody happy. And this takes me to my last little bit on my rant. I have to get on my soapbox for this. Now, I know that this news has only been out officially for, what? Since 4. So for a few hours. It hasn't been out for very long at all. But it frustrates me to no end to see changes which are made to make the experience of the teams and players better, and to not have many of them, especially the ones who are trigger motherfucking happy on calling TOs out on bullshit, not saying positive things, not coming out and saying, wow, these are fantastic changes. Thank you for fucking spending the last 6 months of your life or however long trying to make these things better. These players are so super quick to call out TOs, to call out people for doing the wrong thing and garner their following and weaponize them and give people a bad image. But as soon as something is done that exclusively benefits them, realistically, they don't say shit. Like, it's a fucking two-way street here. Like, the game is about them competing at the highest level, but let's get a little bit of praise going publicly so TOs who are doing the right thing can actually get the credit for it. Like,
agreed.
You know, like I obviously I'm on the side of things getting paid by the TOs, and people will be saying, oh, you know, he's just trying to. I work with all these companies, right? And I see the people who work and they fucking tirelessly. And the thing is, these people want to put on the best for everybody. The people working at the level with these aren't the people making the big bucks. These aren't the fucking CEOs. These are the people who want to give everybody the best experience, and they're the ones who, when they get shit on, it fucking hurts them, man. And let's get some
to continue what
shit.
you're saying there, Chad, as well. The positive side of things need to come in more because the players have so much more weight in what they tweet out and what they say, right? Because a lot of them have these massive followings, and when they do something, they don't kind of understand the full, like, how much that has an impact on what's being said, right? So they're real quick to be negative. If they're just a little bit more positive on these things, like these changes that they're actually for, rather than just kind of ignoring it, if they tweet out like you're saying there, then we kind of turn the thought process of a lot of the community, which ends up being so negative. Just look at the bloody comments under this shit at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like, as soon as Sponge started to talk about this, I started like scrolling my Twitter, and I'm still to find like more than maybe 2 or 3 tweets from players or like coaches or whatever regarding this. Of course, maybe some people are flying back from like iBUYPOWER, Minors, whatever, stuff like that. So maybe they're not around to say anything, but still it feels pretty weird to not have more praise for this, especially but the best of 3 part. Like the best of 3 part, whatever you think about anything else, that is something that everyone wanted. Like best of 1, you can go to the playoffs of a major with just best of 1 wins. People thought that was kind of bullshit, and it was.
Yeah.
That's because you can practice literally, what is it G2 said like for the last major? We practice maybe, they didn't even say they're ready on 3 to 4 maps. They're like, we're kind of okay on 3 to 4 maps. Yeah, it's like, okay, G2, but still they could focus on 3 to 4 maps while everyone else that is playing events before and after that, like FaZe, Astralis, Navi, whatever, they have to practice 6 or 7 maps because they're actually contending for tournaments. And you have these guys who they're decent teams. They can play CS pretty well. They're focusing on 3, 4 maps, and they get to the playoffs, and that's all they want. And that's shit, because then we get shit playoffs, as we got at the last major. So, yeah, should be a bit more recognition. Just Janko just tweeted now, like 30 seconds ago, so obviously watching.
There we go.
Call them out, Sponge.
We are going to move on, because we spent a lot of time just on that breaking news topic, but it was a big one to come into that. The next thing we're going to do, and we're running out of spots here.
Wait.
No, Chad, no.
We can't leave it yet. We need to do our thing. Lucas, hit it.
Oh, Lucas, go.
Fucking hook back.
There you go. Our little sound bites to come in. Happy days. All right. The next one, which we're going to move on to, Lucas has got to do some better coding, so we have more options because we want to talk about so much CSGO stuff. It's going to be the Europe and CIS Minors. It's the fall of the Titans and the rise of the Young Guns, and we're going to have to start with the madness that is Professeur being the failed predictor, believing... Oh, no, sorry, it was Striker that was the failed predictor. Nearly threw you under the bus, Professor. Striker being like, yesterday arguing with me. No, last week arguing with me. Oh, Mousesports, yeah. And I said I could see him not making it because... like so many issues they're having within their team at the moment. You can just see it all the way from back in Star Ladder, obviously swapping out players, changing it last minute, trying to bring someone else back. And guess what? They didn't make it, and it was almost an embarrassment towards the end. When I did that interview with Chris J, when he said like, "Oh, we haven't really been practicing," I was like, "The fuck? You've just come to the European minor. How the hell are you not practicing, man?"
It just feels like they massively underrated everybody. They just.
How can that happen though?
Yeah,
everyone's literally for the last 3 months we're being like, oh, this European minor, this is too stacked, this is not okay, and you're like, fine, easy for us.
Okay, let's look at it this way though. Like they've been competing, like they've barely lost to like one of these underdog teams in like all the events that they've attended, right? They've always kind of gone head to head with like the top 5 teams, maybe not beating them most of the time, but at least like sometimes they take like series off them. But they rarely lose to one of these teams that are basically ranked from like, well, now enter 10th, but let's say they were like between 15 and a little bit lower, right? So like from their perspective, like this, it's not an excuse by any means. I feel like they fucked up big time. But
remember Winstrike at the major?
Yeah, but I can kind of understand how they got into that point, how they thought they were safe, right?
Yeah, but you can't ever think you're safe.
No,
come on, in the most stacked minor, right? And especially off how much they've underperformed, considering where they have been. Like, I can understand maybe not doing as much practice as like what you should have, but to say actually on a live interview, like I appreciate Chris's honesty, right? That's what I want when we're doing these interviews. But my God, you've got to be honest and be like, you can't.
For it.
Yeah, but okay, they should be honest, right? Like. Yep. You look at other sports, they're always honest, they come out with that kind of stuff. And if you fucked up and you're honest about it, then you should be bashed, right? Because this is clearly, there's either some, like, to me, this is Mousesports needing to make another change because you guys wrote about it when you did your top 20, when you had some of the Mousesports players on, there was clear, obvious problems that they're all happy to speak about straight away. You know what I mean? Like, this is just ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think, I'm not sure if you guys saw what Peter tweeted about this situation, which was basically that like whenever something like this happens, like you expect a change, and whether or not it's actually necessary. Like whenever a team reaches like a big low like this, they will change the lineup, and it's just like, especially now that they have like fucking 2 months before anything that they have upcoming, unless there's something that we don't know about, like right after the major or something. Like they literally have like a little bit over 2 months even, I feel like, before their next event.
There are some rumors about some like London event. I think I just saw.
I heard about that.
Something with like Navi, Avant-Garde. I don't know.
I guess
but I don't know if that's like legit or just some like random.
But I mean, it's probably not going to be a massive event though. Like especially when you have the major running until the start of March. Then you have WESG where some of the big teams will be Blast a week later. Like there's not that much space after that for like a big event. So you have to think that, especially given all this time that they have, like they might just look at whoever fucks up at Katowice, and they could just like dip into that pool and try to find
I think it's
some sort of changes.
Like, what is even the issue? Because if they're not practicing, the issue is not people performing. It's like, why are they not practicing?
Well, I think it's both though. Like even going back to the end of last year, like you saw Sunny dropping off at the end of the year. You saw Robs basically doing the same thing. They basically didn't have like 2 of their 3 stars at anywhere near their peak. So I think it's both of those are a problem. Like if they don't practice enough, whether it be individually or team-wise, it doesn't really matter.
But that's the thing. Like if the team atmosphere is bad because like 1 or 2 guys are not putting in what is expected from them, then it's logical after 6 months or a year that these guys have been together that everyone gets infected with that like bad attitude, like bad mentality, that people just don't put in time. So I don't know like where it starts and where it ends in a way, you know?
Let's first of all, like, before we move away too far from the Chris J being honest in the interview point, the fact that he said that is probably alluding to the fact that with him being the highest rated player, and when they played that opening game versus Valiant, literally the only player doing anything, is probably a jab at your teammates, right? Like,
shut the fuck up,
man. Like if I'm out there saying that, if I'm going to go out and say, yeah, we didn't practice enough, and I'm the in-game leader of my team, I probably wouldn't say that if I felt like if I felt shit that I did a bad job or whatever. I probably wouldn't go out there and say that because like I'm also putting my own neck out there to be chopped off. But if he's put in the effort and some of these other guys have dropped the ball and they haven't shown up, or they've been unable to sync shit with holidays, you hear about the fucking Windstrike team and they're practicing over Christmas. Yeah. There's a big difference here in the hunger level, right? Now, sure, you can argue the fact that if this happened in a different situation, or you can argue the fact that it shouldn't happen straight after a player break. I won't argue that, but the fact of the matter is, this is the situation that they found themselves in. Is the mood in the team probably pretty bad? Yeah. Do I think that's exclusively the player's fault? No. Who gives a fuck? Let's do this shit. The organization, as far as I'm aware, forced these players to go to more tournaments than what they wanted to go to, right? They want to get that fucking name out there, get them going to every event, shake them down for every motherfucking penny. That's not okay. These are fucking kids, man. These are people whose brains haven't fully matured yet. No, I'm not being offensive. It doesn't happen to you 25 years of age, you fucking cunts. Anyway, let's be responsible for the youth of tomorrow. Let's treat this like it's not a fucking train that's going to come to an end. Let's treat this like this the esport that's been around for 15 years now, and all these cunts are saying, what's going to happen when Counter-Strike dies? Counter-Strike's never fucking dying. Fuck all of you who have that mentality. This is the thing. The longevity of these players is crucial. I'm not saying follow the Astralis model. I'm just saying think with your fucking head for a second and actually put these people, once they establish themselves as a decent team, they don't need to go to the smaller events. They don't need to be there. Let them practice. Let them have time. They're maturing and they're learning, right? This, for a lot of these kids, they're having their first relationships and stuff. You don't need to send them on the world tour or circus all the time, because you look at me. Yeah, I'm insane. You don't want to drive all these kids in that same way, because you need to be a certain level of mentally ill to do this every single week of your life, right? This is not what we want for these people. Legitimately. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, you have to be a little bit demented to be able to do this all the time. So
you got to think about mental health as well, Chad. Like, this is one of the things that pisses me off mainly about teams. As someone, I have suffered in the past myself with depression and anxiety. It's a real fucking problem. And you've got these kids having to go around the world non-stop, away from family, around from friends. You're hearing organisations, which isn't just Mousesports, there's plenty of fucking organisations that are just absolute wankers and only care about getting these teams to every event possible, meaning they don't actually get any time to relax. And then you wonder why a player drops off or a crumble. And then on top of it, the community then comes and is like, oh, that player's just fucking shit. But they don't really understand how difficult this shit is, travelling all the time, being away from family and friends, just not having any real stability or normal life in play. And then you wonder why these players are like dropping off and quitting the game probably before they should do, right? So we need that kind of system in place where organizations are held accountable for this kind of shit.
Yeah, to be honest, like, I obviously agree with all of that. Like, you can't force the teams to just attend everything, especially given that, like, I would understand it if there were maybe like 5 less events in a year or something like that for them. Like, that's still, like, if you go to one tournament in a month, I feel like that's pretty reasonable, right? But now I think they had some 18, if I'm not mistaken. I think Mousesports were one of the higher ones, especially towards the start. So like that's pretty rough, because that's like some events, some months you're going to have two tournaments in that month, even 2 in a row. Like, you literally will be on the road for something like 2 weeks. If you include the major, let's say people who went to Stockholm and to the FaZe major, right? I was one of those people, and that was a month away from everything. Like, you're literally a month at a competition, even though it's 2. It doesn't even matter. It's the same thing. So, like, for that to happen, that's not a great approach to it.
Yeah, I remember you at the major, like, the last week. You were totally losing your mind.
I was
you weren't
100%
okay.
out. Like, I was, even after like the second week of the major, even before playoffs, I already felt like, holy shit.
I just counted that they did 18 events, Mousesports did, in last year. And that is some of these, like, lasting, like the major lasting like 2 weeks, plus media days, plus like media obligations, because every year they go to like what is it, Gamescom in Germany.
Sponsors,
for sponsor obligations, then they flew out for other stuff, and then they fly to Sydney, you fly to like China, or they didn't do Chinese events, but they did Brazil though, stuff like that. That is a lot of time in the road. And they're also one of the teams that almost never has their manager around. That is something I found.
Yeah,
it's always like LMBT. It's just LMBT that is also like the coach, so he is mostly he's not a manager. He's like whatever, he doesn't do anything regarding that, like managing people a bit, but he's not the manager in the classic sense at all. So I don't know, kind of weird from that perspective, but as we said, the team just seems to be...
I think honestly, had they not gone to so many events last year, maybe we wouldn't have seen the whole Snacks Stico thing come into play.
Agree,
like, maybe we could have just had this roster, and actually I would say Mouse would be better for it had they not had that change. Imagine what that done to the fucking team dynamic, getting rid of him, then bringing him back in. Like, that's a whole head fuck on its own.
Okay, this is slightly off topic, but I really don't agree with that, just because they changed Stickle for Snacks at their peak, basically, like close to their peak anyway. So I feel like that was just down to them just feeling like, okay, we're not happy with this top 4 thing anymore. We really want to compete for events. Okay, it wasn't their peak, because at their peak they won V4 and they won the Star Series. Yeah. But still, they were still doing very well. They were still doing top 4s and stuff like that. And they only went for that change just because they felt like they couldn't have competed for titles consistently. So I really don't agree with that sentiment.
I want to give a bit of a counterpoint here, because I think I was at almost every event that they were at in a row, and I would always talk to LMBT because I like listening to his musings on Counter-Strike, and I talked to him coming into events, and I'd be like, how you guys feeling? Like, is it going to be right? He's like, yeah, but we've just got back from here. We haven't had any time to practice. Next event. I'm like, how you guys feeling? Like, oh, we just got here from this event. Like, we haven't had any time to sit down and practice. So the common theme of the conversation with him was they didn't get a chance to continue to readdress their map pool. In the early parts of last year, you can make an argument for them being the best Mirage team in the world, right?
100%. Yeah, I remember that run.
At no point were they able to bolster their map pool. When you're making it to like top 8s in tournaments, and then you're losing because your map pool's so weak, and then people are starting to counter your Mirage, it got to a point where they had to do shit with their Mirage, where they had ROPs AWPing from Ticket. Like, that's the only way they could throw in variety, is just like, hey, let's do whatever the fuck we want. I think that if they had less time off, that they could have practiced, if they had more time off, and they could have practiced and fixed their map pool at any point before that player break, this Stico thing would never have happened. I was at the event, it was a Starlighter event, where they bombed out earlier than they thought they should. And that after that is when they made the Stico change. So they've obviously looked for a snap fix. They've gone, okay, Snacks is available. This makes sense. We're going to bolster our thing. We're going to bolster our firepower. This is the change we need to make, and it'll bring us back to a level. Realistically, all they need to do was take that player break off, relax, masturbate a little bit, play some FPL, get back to the roots of the way that things should be. Not reinvent the wheel by any means, and then come out of it with a game plan. Instead, this is what they've done to themselves, man. They did the Snacks change. Okay, now we need to make Snacks comfortable. Okay, well, we like it the way it is. Let's just put him in Stico's positions. Snacks wasn't at his peak. Snacks wasn't anywhere near his peak. He was struggling. Snacks needed to learn how to reinvent himself as a player. So now they've got a guy with an identity crisis joining a team with an identity crisis and trying to fix problems. Did they win New York? Yes. Do I think that's up to Liquid shitting the bed? Yes.
Yes.
So then we move forward for the year. Okay, we get rid of Snacks. We bring Stico back. Okay, now we've got the dynamic we like, because you look at these guys in the hallways, you look at them hanging out. They're having fun. They're joking. They don't have a lot of emotion, but they have their little memes, their little in jokes, their fucking dumb Gucci shit that they wear. They have that dynamic throughout the whole team. The only player...
There's some pretty baller shit right there, though.
Fuck that stuff. If you're dressing for status, just get the fuck out. Anyway, I think that if they had kept Stico the whole time, just practiced and fixed their map pool, that they would have stayed like at the level they were at, and they could have been more in contention. Now they've forced themselves into a position where they need to go do some soul searching and decide if they still want to play with each other. Because the last year they've had has been like an abusive relationship that they've done to themselves. And it's unfortunate that they find themselves in this position, because they're a good unit. Like, they're a good team. It's just... there's no way back from this hole. It's almost like how Astralis got with Karrigan and how FaZe got with Karrigan. They lost faith in the program. And when you lose faith in the program, you got to start again, man. You just have to fucking start again.
I mean, and in the end, as we said at the beginning of all of this, you can't really blame the players that much, because from what we know, it wasn't their decision to attend every event they could attend in 2018. So some of the responsibility lies on the organization that and I mean, they paid for it, and the $2,000 they paid for snacks. So that's kind of their redemption or whatever for the whole mess up.
Let's come away from Mousesports now and look at some of the young guns. The last thing we're going to say is I kind of agree with the Gucci Gang thing, but Chris J has the fucking best chain going, Chad. So fuck you. Every time I see him, I interview him. I'm like, that chain is fucking baller. The one with the skull on it. I love that shit. But I love my rings and things as well. What we got to talk about next is Valiance, right? Fucking hell, what a team. What a surprising team as well. Everyone thought, they do it once, they're not going to be able to do it again. These young guns come out. Obviously, Striker, I think you interviewed Nexa, right? And that's when he spoke about the anti-stratting, which was really cool to see. And this is very different than the Imperial lineup, who were literally just mad fragging machines with it was a bit more chaotic, right? So this I'm a big fan of. And at least, okay, they didn't get to the major, but like this is certainly a team where I can see them having a good year if they can keep this up.
I mean, they were like fucking 2 rounds away from reaching the major against Vitality. Exactly. They had like 16-13, 16-14, 16-13 series against Vitality, who ended up making the major, right? After that, after they eliminated them in 4th place. So just look at how close they got to it, right? And just shortly going back to Mousesports, just because obviously Valiance beat them twice. Like the first time it was anti-stratting, but the second time they just fucking straight out-dueled them. It wasn't even a contest on the second map, I felt like. So that's another thing to look at, that they were able to. Sure, Mousesports were definitely out of shape. They weren't at their peak form for sure, but to be able to out-duel some of these players is pretty sick. And that's pretty much it.
The best thing of all, I mean, last episode I was like kind of counting them out. I was like, I don't care about them that much anymore. Not really like the full Serbian team that they used to be. At least regional, they had like a Bosnian that now changed flag. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But in the end, I kind of went back on them and said like maybe they have a chance. They have like some decent firepower, and I feel like it's more Mousesports just like shitting the bed than them doing something that great in the second match they played.
In the series, yeah.
Yeah, it was just like, I feel like just the pressure got to them, maybe some internal conflicts that they were playing bad. And as Bunch said, like, if Chris J is calling out his teammates after they win, probably not that good, then they lose the next match. You'd think that inside of the team, it's not functioning the best. And then Valiance just play like good CS. I mean, they're not like the best team in the world, but they're not bad. They have good players. They just play decent CS, and Mousesports fall apart. But the best part of all of it is Hunter still pulling off that boost in Mirage window and flanking people. He has been doing that for literally a year. He did that. He did that to Mousesports. I feel like it was at the first DreamHack Masters.
Marseille.
Yeah, that's it. He was doing that. It was like front page Reddit. Sick. Nico's cousin doing a flank, of course, because he doesn't have his own name or whatever. But how do people not expect that?
That's not going to be true anymore. Like, I feel like after this tournament, people are going to start to
I hope so, because that's really disrespectful, though. It's like, this guy's cousin. It's like, okay, he can actually.
Yeah, but that's what the community is like. We don't do that shit, right? People are just idiots.
We do it. So from a narrative telling perspective, everybody knows the name Nico, right? So if we do it on analyst desks, and we bring up the connection, it's purely to put him in the same place, right? Like he's in the same realms and he's playing well. So like we refer to him as his alias, but on the analyst desk, the reason to do that is from a storytelling perspective. But when we spoke about Valiance last time round, the thing is, okay, there might be a lot of data on this team, right? They did play a lot of matches together online before coming into this tournament, but when they're not proven on LAN, the proof has to be in the pudding. So for us to write off a team, or for us to say, this team, they might have a chance to have some firepower, but we didn't consider them a contender with the likes of Mousesports, who are proven, Vitality, who have shown some exciting things over recent times, Ence, who have been gradually building, North and Optic we kind of wrote off because of a similar thing, right? We put North, Optic, and Valiance in the, there's a chance, but we don't know what to expect. Like that's the kind of position we put them in, is because literally that, we don't know what to expect with these teams when they come to these type of events. Now with Valiance, now we know what to expect, right? But if we diagnose, if we break down the way that they approached the game here, it was their play style of Counter-Strike, right? They were very push heavy, very aggressive, always wanted to take fights. Even when it didn't work for them, even sometimes they would lose rounds because of this, they stuck to their guns. They continued it the whole way through. Now, that approach of Counter-Strike is good in the realms of one tournament. It doesn't have longevity. So we see these teams, LDLC popped up, but Chicago had a pretty good run, but then they'll dip off again. It's once your tendencies, once your approach to the game gets known, you'll spike and then you drop. Valiant's here, yeah, Valiants have spiked and they put themselves on the map. Now I hope that they add depth to their game because they spoke about counter-strating. Fantastic. They have really good aim. They're fantastic individual players who love their approach. They haven't, you know, they now need to add the depth to their game so they can fall back on certain things and have different layers because there is a lot of potential there. Let's not beat around the bush. The fact that they had 4 different players lighting up the server at any given time, just fucking trashing on some players who we consider, you know, some of the best teams in the world or top 20 teams in the world or top 10, whatever, however you want to rate them. The talent is definitely there. That's undeniable. It's just about how they approach this going forward. What they have, fantastic. Build on that, great. And I think the interesting thing with them is they're not really defined at the moment with an in-game leader. I went into that tournament thinking it would have most likely been Nexa, just purely because of his history. I had to check with Yanko halfway through because people are like, oh, Letney's sitting in the middle and he's the more supportive player, so it makes sense for him to be the in-game leader. And I checked with Yanko. I said, Yanko, do you know who's in-game leading? And he said, Hunter. And I asked Hunter the next day and he said, yeah, 70%, but we're still kind of, you know, everybody's kind of chipping in. He said, Emmy, the coaches, obviously helping a lot. And different Esperanto made a joke like everybody, you know? So for this team moving forward, they have their identity now. It's just about adding depth to that identity because for that region, it's a fantastic little prospect.
I think it's a good way for us to segue off them and then talk about obviously the Finnish champions who managed to get it done in Ence. The Easy for Ence show continues, and these guys, I don't know, Sponge, I know you agree with me on this. They're playing CS the way it's meant to be played, and I put a tweet out because people obviously give like Zonic praise so much, and they give certain coaches praise, but a lot of coaches just get shouted as like, oh, they're only motivational or whatever. Twister is a fucking super hands-on with that team as well, and he applies so much to it, so I want to give him that little shout out as well.
I made a joke to Striker that the only reason they got him in the team is for someone to do interviews, except for XCB. So it's just like sending him in all.
Hey, well, actually, that means Lucas can play the clip then, because yeah, they even sent X7, bless him. That was my god, that was a rough fucking.
No, I mean that was a good one. Yeah, though. Like you rarely get any of those emotions.
Yeah, no. Do you know what? I loved that, but I fucking thought I was gonna cry. My god, like. He was obviously. We had a little bit of the meme
I didn't
thing at the
see how he
beginning.
started though. Like it's actually running now.
See this? Yeah. So
I haven't seen how he started.
So like I put this on. It was like a little bit of a crowning thing, right? To have some fun. Natu gave us some Ence, whatever you call these things, fucking scarves. That's
scarves, yeah.
And then I didn't realise because when we were talking beforehand, he seemed fine, but then afterwards, like. I watched him, and he was obviously. This means so much to them. They've been working at it. If anyone hasn't watched the Ence documentaries that they released with like English subtitles come out, then go back and watch that stuff. I'll tweet out or something. But like this team, obviously, they had such a rough start when they came together. They weren't even sure of like if it was going to be a long-term thing. They grinded out like crazy, and now they're here and they make it to a major. And I could just feel how much it meant to him when I was doing the interview. And fucking hell, even I was getting choked up. Like, I wanted him to try to give some more, but like, obviously, it just means so much to these guys. So, I just think they play the proper brand of Counter-Strike. That this is like how it should be done, right? Where you've got a couple of experienced players in there, you've got mad fragging power at the same time, but you're not trying to just force your way through rounds. Like they make such smart economic decisions as well. I could praise them to no end.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, all of this is something that we knew ahead of time, right? Ents were one of those teams, one of the few teams that we actually knew what to expect from. We just weren't sure if they were going to be able to go up against somebody like Mousesports, right? If they would actually clinch that second spot, or like even against North, even despite some of their issues, like we weren't sure if they were going to match up against those teams because we just put them maybe like slightly below that level, right? But we knew exactly what you were saying, that they have a very defined style of CS. And that they have some of those stars that can step up at any time. So that's just them actually living up to that and not fucking up with like some of those big leads that they've done before, and just losing from winning positions and stuff like that. That's a very good sign moving forward.
They also came from behind, right? So
that's true.
I don't think I need to really re-echo any of those sentiments. I agree with all of that. I still need to be sold a little bit more on closers in big games. Still a few jitters, obviously, but that's a learning experience. That's
they have a lot of them, like
16,
14 games, right, Chad?
But I mean, just look at the players that they have, right? They literally just have only Alo as a major player, right? The rest of them are going to attend their first major in a month. So that's something we have to look at as well. It's just obviously these guys are just not experienced, not at the highest tier of Counter-Strike. So give them this year. I think who was it that tweeted? Oh, Anders, I think it was, that in 2019 we were going to see like a rise of Finnish CS. And I think that maybe it's not going to be this year yet, but I think it like next year after this lineup gets that another year of actual top tier CS, because last year they got maybe a few events. They didn't go to that many. So when they actually get a few more under their belts this year, I think that's when we're going to see some more big things from Finnish Counter-Strike.
I mean, the only thing I want to add is just like onto you, Striker, what you said about this is their first major. I don't think it matters that much, just because the state of CS we have now, you have so many good big events that you can play, that you can get the experience. Of course, they didn't play like that many big playoffs, but still, they won Star Series, which had like a small crowd. They played at Epicenter, and they played ESL1 Cologne.
But even
and a bunch of like smaller,
3 out of like 15 or 20 events that they could have, right? So that's not that much.
Yeah, of course, they didn't play that many, but I don't feel like it's like a big jump up. I feel like this is where we kind of expected to see them. And from now, we want to see like how they're going to fare against like the best teams in the world.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that kind of covers us up for what we saw during the EU minor.
Can I just throw out just quickly?
Chad. Always.
We just need to obviously say ZywOo continues to deliver. I think he only had 1, maybe 2 bad games. But I saw a tweet from Apex today. I just want to quickly find it if I can.
Was it about the individual side?
Yeah. He just basically the sentiment that he was saying that he was focusing too much on the strategy side of things, which I think was definitely reflected in his game. So the fact that he already notes that as an issue is good, because the potential of this guy is really good. I think RPK played up to his level. Alex, all things considered, I think he has a lot of growing room. And RPK had his moments, but we need a bit more consistency. And their overall play style, they had strategies. They played a modern brand of Counter-Strike. And for the French to learn mid-round CS, it's going to take a lot of time, because it's not something that they've really had in their pool. They used to just, when they were at their best, it was like a bull in a china shop type approach. So now I think with this new addition with ZywOo, with MBK being very well measured in his interviews and the way he wants to approach this new project, I think that this team has a lot of potential as long as they stay together and it doesn't have the same infighting that French teams have had historically. And I think that they'll continue to grow. Whether we can expect too much from them during the next stage, I'm not too sure just yet. But I think that these guys should be better than G2. And I just want to say that I thought that, regardless of the fact that people say, oh, well, ZywOo's the only reason, sure, you could make a really good argument for him being the only reason for them qualifying to this point. But I think as a team, these guys are going to get their shit together, and I think we're going to see a very strong Vitality roster in 2019.
I'd say the only reason I didn't bring them up before that is just because we expect them to make it through, right? But yeah, it should have a slight mention down. Just ZywOo having such a crazy fucking performance, man, across all of it.
We'll have a lot of shows to talk about ZywOo, I feel like.
Yeah, he's going to keep going back, right?
I mean, just to touch on that aspect as well, though, on Apex especially, but just generally the team. Like, consider how long Alex has been with them, and even from the interviews that I did with both NBK and Alex, actually, They literally just slotted Alex to whatever Happy played. So that's not going to be comfortable for anybody. And I think that was also something that NBK tweeted out in French maybe a couple of hours ago. I saw a tweet that was kind of touching on that exact point.
And it touched on the binomes and trinomes of CS.
Oh yeah, that was it.
All right, well now, Professor and Striker, it's time for you guys to do the GG.BET moment to see who is actually the master better, and if one of you two will take a lead in this craziness that we're doing in terms of one of you having to go head to head against each other.
We need to give this the proper level of hype, James. Do you mind if I kick this one off?
We got another one.
Well, I think I was going to go like over the top, but I've blown my load a little bit earlier on my rant. So I was going to hype this up like a boxing match. Maybe I'll do it next time. I'll pre-record it with Lucas and we'll use it as the opener for this segment. But I think for those who don't understand what we're about to do, Prof vs Striker is going to happen for the next 6 or 7 weeks until after the major, and whoever comes out on top with the whole betting situation, whoever has more in their back pocket, is the winner. And we're working out a forfeit. We don't know where we're at yet, so maybe you can send in some submissions via the Twitter or the HLTV.org forums, whatever you guys want to do. But they're basically going toe to toe in a battle royale type environment here. Who has the bigger Counter-Strike wit?
Yeah, and we're starting. We're starting with.
I didn't expect that one.
Do you know what? I need to know where all these fucking sound bites are coming. Lucas's little mastermind in the background.
I think it's just like a surprise.
That's on board, yeah.
And we're starting with like 500 euros, and from GG.BET, of course, sponsored money. Don't bet if you can't afford it, and always be very reasonable with it, of course. But yeah,
never follow whatever we do because we haven't really been very successful.
We were successful at the start of last season,
that's true.
And then we lost like 8 or 10 episodes in a row. All 3 of us lost everything. So that just shows how betting goes. You win sometimes, you think you're like the king of the world, then you lose everything. So,
Prof, you are the king of the world. I've changed Striker's title to say failed predictor because he was all in Mousesports and gave me shit about it last time. So fuck you, Striker.
Yeah.
I can't. I said this on Twitter already. I can't defend this one because like I've been proven very wrong. So fuck it.
I mean, all in all, I am the favorite for this, just based on like last year's stats.
I mean, where would we like $20 off of each other?
At the end, you came. Yeah,
fair enough.
You made up some ground. But whatever, yeah. We're starting with 500 euros, and after the major, we're gonna see where we end and bring in the bets, man.
I'm just curious about what you chose
because
I was like, I don't know.
It
doesn't matter. Just start, Prof.
All right,
that's you.
This is me.
That's you.
This is me. So I went for a combo bet, and it was like four of these matches. 80 euros stake for a 280 win, and I feel it's mostly reasonable. So I went for Greyhound to beat Cyberzen, just because these Chinese teams didn't really convince me about anything yet. Both of them, it's Vici and Cyberzen at the minor. I went for NRG to win the Americas minor because they will not shit the bed again as they did last time. Especially because they shit the bed the last time, they won't do it now. And like the Americas minor, besides NRG, doesn't have like any real like contender. So I feel like that's a lock-in. And then I went for MVP PK against Beyond, the Thai team. Didn't do anything internationally ever. And I also, just for why not, I put in Renegades to beat Equius Club, the Israeli team with God Anarkes, who played in like the Adria League like 2 months ago. So they're just like an Israeli team. They play qualifiers in Europe and stuff like that. They're okay, but never did anything as well. And Renegades should be able to take that best of one. So that's like total odds 3.5. And I think it's pretty reasonable.
What did you say was how much did you bet? What's the combo?
80 euros for 280.
280. Okay. I mean, that's pretty close.
Yeah, I went in big for the first, just maybe.
I mean, I'm a lot safer than that, just because I didn't actually go for a combo. Because that has just not worked out at all for me for the past like 10 episodes or something. So I just went for singles and actually included even E-League as well. Which was the first match. Huh?
I didn't even see that was.
It was added very recently because it was only announced today, right? The matchups.
I feel like this is cheating though. But
I mean, we can wait until the very end. It's your own fault. I did it like 10 minutes before the show. But I mean, that's what I started with FaZe against Cloud9. I feel like what FaZe showed at iBUYPOWER.
These are best of threes for the E-League, right?
Yeah, that's a best of three. Yeah. So that's one of those factors that I have. I feel like FaZe are not going to lose to Cloud9 over a best of three. FaZe Cloud9 being the team that just struggled with the lineup for the entirety of last year. Basically, it never really ended, and it still hasn't ended if you look at it. We
don't need the whole Cloud9 history. We know that.
But I mean, you get my point. Both teams
That's
being
a reasonable. That's a reasonable one.
Both teams actually went out in groups at iBUYPOWER though. Like neither of them did well. So
we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, but I'm just going with the favorite in that game. I feel like FaZe, what they showed at iBUYPOWER is not going to be their real selves. I think they're just going to come back from that. Maybe they're also like affected by the whole shit show. Like we said, we're going to talk about it. Next up, I went with the Renegades to win. Yeah, it is the winner of the Asia Minor Championship. I feel like they just don't have enough of a competition. I'm pretty confident in them winning just because I don't see anybody of those teams beating them consistently. Sure, they could probably lose somewhere in the groups or something like that.
Maybe I just saw your total stake. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
You went big.
Oh yeah, there we go.
You literally put like 30% of your total money that you have on this.
Well, I mean, we have like 7 weeks, and there are going to be a couple of weeks that are not going to have any interesting matches. So that's why I went pretty big this time. But yeah, last thing, you already talked about it with Energy. I put them. What's yours? What was your bet?
To win. What did you put? The final?
I guess it's to reach the final. I guess mine must be to reach. Yeah, it's to reach the final. Actually, it might be both. I might have fucked up with the Renegades. I think I went to reach the final with both cases. And then Energy, I basically have the same reasoning as you. I feel like that they're very, very favored. It's kind of like, I don't want to say it, but it's kind of similar to Mousesports in Europe. I just thought, I just think the very, very same thing, that there's no way that they can lose.
I mean, using your own logic and the history that happened, don't you kind of feel like that is the bad bet?
It's not going to happen twice. Like that's what I'm going to say. It's not going to happen to me twice. Yeah. That like the massive favorite of a tournament is just going to lose. So like to reach the final, I feel confident with that. Last time I said Mousesports was just going to straight out win it without a problem. So I'm scaling down a little bit, but keeping confident with the favorites.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll see how this all works out. Interesting choices, lads. I'm just happy that Prof put in MVP. But we'll get onto that anyway a little bit later. So we're going to move on to the most questionable event of the last few years. I don't know. It was fucking absolutely terrible. iBUYPOWER shit show time is the only way to put it. And Chad, I want to start with you. I literally felt like we were going back to like 2003 when we were fucking playing at events with no one there and tons of issues and delayed and playing till God knows when. Like, that was just shocking.
I want to preface this. I don't historically speak out if things are good at a tournament or if things are bad at a tournament. I just sit in the middle because it's my job just to talk about Counter-Strike. It's not my job to fucking do any of that other nonsense.
I'm going to stop you there, Chad, as well. Just mention one thing. Sorry, buddy. Mm-hmm. But obviously, iBUYPOWER were kind of just the sponsor of it. It's their event. They weren't the ones producing it. So whatever production team thought they were going to fucking put that on clearly bit off more than they can chew.
Yeah, but bro, like, if you're going to trust someone who's never run something before as a tier 1 tournament, you need to make sure that, you're at least doing a little bit of a background check. I think Scoots made a very good tweet. The upside of an open esports ecosystem is that anyone can throw a tournament. The downside of an open esports ecosystem is that anyone can throw a tournament. Now, True. I already put the onus on the players a little bit earlier in terms of a lot of things, and I think when a tournament like this happens in the future, now that they're all part of the union, or at least most of them should be, when something like this happens, and if the situation is as bad as what it was being made to seem like on social media, and let's be honest, watching the broadcast was not ideal at all by any means, then they should, as much as they're shooting themselves in the foot, they won't be able to win any prize money. It's important for them to stand up, as opposed to just complaining. They should come together if it is really dire and just say, look, like we're not doing this, because what they are doing is devaluing good tournaments, right? If you're going to run something of an event and you're going to have tier 1 teams coming to your tournaments, you have to understand what these guys are getting at the best events, what E-League's putting on, what FaZe did at the major, what ESL does, what StarLadder provides with their prac rooms. You need to understand that this isn't easy to do. Like, fucking Joe Blogs down the block can't just put on a tournament because he has a bit of residual marketing money to fucking throw a CS event. Let's like think outside of the box here. It's great that anybody can come into this space. Who have we had recently do that? Blast. Have they done a great job dealing with players' needs, putting on good production, innovating, you know, HUDs, doing all those kind of... Yes, they've done a fantastic job. That is the positive side. The negative side is when you get something like this that crops up, and now I understand why these teams, you know, thought that it was a good idea to go to this tournament. It's a touch-up event. It's a chance for them to put their little toe back in the water. For them, a lot of them going into the major makes a lot of sense, right? It does. It just does. But the issue here is when it crops up and when it arises, somebody has to put their foot down, because to allow this tournament to go on in the way that it did is just a mockery to our whole game. There was a guy there, Fion, I don't know what his, you know, he's usually not affiliated with Counter-Strike, but it was the first, he has a big following on Twitter. Mm-hmm. It was the first Counter-Strike tournament that he went to cover, and it was that much of a fucking mockery. Now, that reflects badly on all of us, right? That doesn't reflect badly on just iBUYPOWER. It reflects poorly on the game, and sure, that's people who are maybe ignorant or don't know how normal Counter-Strikes run, but it doesn't take a lot to taint the fucking water, right? It's one, when I go to a restaurant, if I have a shit experience, I'm not going back to that fucking restaurant. It's as simple as that. Yeah. So all in all, you just put this down to somebody trying to run a tier 1 tournament who had no business trying to run a tier 1 tournament. You run that for like tier 3, tier 4 teams and it happens, sure. But that has to be one of the worst tournaments that I think I've had to witness in a long time. I even played in that RGN tournament back in 2015 where we had to play the grand final at 4 a.m. versus Cloud9, who went back to their hotel and slept because it was so late while we were playing Liquid in the lower bracket. And then we changed the format of the final to a best of 1 because we all just wanted to get the fuck out of there. It's just, these things, unfortunately, are going to crop up every now and again. We have the Gamers Paradise. There's always going to be a tournament who's someone who thinks that they know how to plug a computer in and start a server. You don't know shit.
No. And this is the thing, right? I said it to a couple of the other guys I was talking to, British guys, if you remember iSeries, it's like kind of regular back in the day for the finals to be like 1 and 2 in the morning, and that's that kind of shit I was expecting. I just felt sorry for, like, obviously Team Liquid ended up winning it, right, and we'll get onto that in a little bit, but it's like an event that could have been so epic and these little things just such a mess, and it just really kind of knocks it down a level, right? It doesn't take away from their win because obviously they still beat Astralis, but there's too much talk around all the negative stuff and not actually on the game that we care about the most.
I think there's like a lot of questions to be asked, like how did it actually happen? Like how did iBUYPOWER Masters get Astralis, FaZe, Liquid, Cloud9, like top orgs, top
Sponge
teams?
already said it. Sponge already said it. This was the event that that they went to just to kind of have something before the major. Okay. They have a month now. Like, let's say you didn't go to that light, right? You would have, for Astralis, it would have been like 2 months without any official play. They would have just practiced for 2 months straight. Yeah. And I'm not entirely sure that
I understand that part. I understand that part. But at the same time, do they not like check in at all about the event? Like just looking at the schedule, because of course, like the public doesn't get the schedule in advance, but you know it's a 2-day event. You know it's group stage and playoffs, and then kind of like think about like how does this schedule work, and then they say it's like best of 1 single stream. That's 10 best of 1s in 1 day on 1 stream on 1 setup of PCs.
Oh, and by the way, we're gonna have stop people playing at 9 p.m. as well, right? Because we're in a fucking nightclub.
In a nightclub that works later. Yeah,
that's the biggest like mind fuck for me, honestly.
Even if they had like a perfect switch up setup, just 10 best of 1s, that an hour and a half, you need to change people, have like a like in between, you have to have a bit of off time for the stream, for whatever. That is literally 15 hours of broadcast.
I think the main, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think the main problem with this, with just these teams kind of getting baited in, is that they didn't realize that this was a new team behind the scenes, and that they obviously saw that this was an established tournament, right? We've had this even as a qualifier for Oakland in the past years, like a couple of years in a row, if I'm not mistaken. I went to one of them, and that those events, as far as I remember, they went fine, right? So that's the problem that I think kind of caused teams to get baited into accepting that invite, that they thought this was established people and experienced people running the show, And obviously that wasn't the case, and that's the big problem.
I mean, it can happen. It obviously can happen, but it shouldn't happen from now on. I think this is the event that puts everyone on notice. Like, you have to check, double check, triple check everything, because even if everything, like if we didn't have like the security not being in, then DK tweeting about it, then a guy making a stupid joke that had to be checked, that delayed like the whole event for another hour, and all of that stuff, that was like good work from him, whatever, like that still wouldn't finish on time. It's no way you play 10 best of ones in that short amount of time. So just from the start it was doomed. In the end, they kind of like salvaged it with the practice PCs, which are, by the way, just literally in between like the stands. So people literally watching the main game or behind the people that are playing the B stream, which wasn't a stream, of course. So it's just a shit show. It can't happen. And it also it's pretty funny that I remember when PLG had the event.
Oh, I was there.
I was there, you were there. There were no streams for like half the games, and people were saying, oh, how can you not have streams for like the B stream, whatever? Like, how can you not give GoTV? It was the same thing here, even though it was just like one set of PCs, and they obviously had like 16 teams, 4 matches at the same time, even like much more difficult to pull off. So yeah, it happens. I
mean, I'm sorry, but like, I just can't understand the organizer's point of view. Is how the fuck do you just go and look at this schedule that you have, and just like picking a venue where you have to break down by 7 p.m. by a certain time, right? Unless it's like whatever, well into the night, I can get that, and like, okay, maybe whatever, you didn't have a venue. But if it's like 7 p.m. and like you say the schedule was as it was, how do you look at that and think, okay, this is a good idea, this is going to work? Like, I was just wondering about that.
You obviously never did a CS event before. Like,
no, that's literally, I have.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't. You have, I have, and I never like put a schedule in for at least like, you need at least 2 hours for a best of one if you're changing a setup. It's like minimum, and it can easily last longer than that, because you have like 1 or 2 tech issues. You can have a best of one, from one best of one to another best of one. It can be like, with the match and the 2 setups, it can be 3 hours easily if you don't know what you're doing. So you can't do stuff like that. It's just unreasonable. It's very unreasonable.
But it's just like with picking the venue word that it's a nightclub at the same time. It's just like that.
I mean, it's the same guys that didn't have noise cancelling
that would have been
headphones.
the thing. Like, let's say teams asked, right? So how what's the venue like? What's the venue, right? And they say like, oh, it's actually a nightclub, right? So we have to kind of reconstruct it, and then like in between days we actually have to break it down, and then there's the.
I think that would be enough of a warning sign like, for no one.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. That would be the thing that would just prevent everybody from going there.
But you know how you mentioned the noise cancelling headphone thing? Just a little bit more information on that. As far as I've been led to believe by a reliable source, they had noise cancelling headphones. They just didn't have a working microphone and assumed that the players' in-ears would. So that tells you really how much they know about running a tournament.
I guess we're going to get surprised by these every now and again.
Yeah. Oh, Lucas.
Okay. But they got noise cancelling headphones for the final, and someone tweeted like, or someone, I think even in Nav's interview, he said like Astralis got the noise cancelling headphones. They somehow pulled some connections to get headphones in LA or whatever. So that kind of helped, I guess.
There's one thing this guy said in the chat, I'm just trying to bring it back up. It says, according to one of the organisers, they were not expecting these top tier teams. They invited everyone, not expecting them to accept, and Astralis accepted after all of the top ones. He said this comes from a runner. Whether that's true or not is another thing, but like
that can't be true.
That would be a fucking meme if they didn't expect it. Because like nothing else was going on at that point either, other than the minors. So why would these teams not go and try it all out, right?
Like literally.
I'd love if that was actually the truth. Can we try and find out from like, let's go just speak to some fucking iBUYPOWER
But if that's true, like you just invite people, oh, maybe we'll get them. And then you're not prepared for them to actually come. I mean, that's pretty naive.
I might invite Taylor Swift to my birthday party. Maybe.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Shows up.
Then she comes into the slump.
And I live like in the worst shithole in Croatia.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what is this? It's like, welcome.
Welcome to my home. Welcome. Okay, never mind.
Well, let's move on to the only positive thing that came out of iBUYPOWER Masters, right, is the Team Liquid win. They finally get it done over Astralis, and I know when we watched the fucking first map, I was like, oh, okay, we're just having a repeat of last year. Liquid's going to get wrecked. And then I was like, I didn't see the second two games at the time. I had to watch them afterwards earlier today. But I was like, whoa, this was legit. This was actually... But my problem is, right, and now, if this wasn't Astralis, I'd probably think of it in a different way. But... say, for example, Astralis, they lose, the event's such a shit show, it's been like they don't really care too much, you kind of say that to them, but they've got the mental coach, they've got the psychologist, they've got all the preparation, like, it shouldn't matter how bad an event is, they should be able to perform. So, for me, this is a legit win. Like, this was huge.
The loss doesn't matter to Astralis, but
No.
the win matters to Liquid, and the win matters to Liquid for a few reasons, not because it's a big win, like, it's not like, oh, this is a big tournament, and, like, I think that a lot of teams here, now I want to be very careful how I word this. I think a lot of teams here were probably giving 100%, but they're not at 100%, if that makes sense. Because they've just come off the player break, they're probably playing in like to a high level. Let's say 90%, let's not say 100%. They're playing to a high level and wanting to give the a good showing, but I don't think they're at the peak of where they're going to be during the major. So I think for Liquid here, some of the just takeaways I had by watching their games, because for some reason I enjoy watching Counter-Strike from 10 o'clock in the morning until 3 a.m. at night. But the fact of the matter was that their CT sides felt like putting up a brick wall against a lot of opponents, and their T sides had the finesse and that Eric Adren touch to them that, like, these are well thought out pistol rounds with well thought out rounds with a purpose. The pistol rounds impressed me, at least one on Keish did. And I think that so those signs are really positive, because I didn't know how it was going to work. I still think socially there will be issues for this team, but I think this kind of boost early is fantastic for them going into the major as a mental, for at least the four of them who couldn't beat Astralis, that we can do it. And it's a big takeaway in that regard. Even if they know, oh yeah, they haven't practiced a lot or they haven't been trying, it's still the actually doing it and actually, completing that process. So I think there's really positive signs going forward for Liquid. But in terms of for the other teams in the event, like Fnatic, FaZe, these kind of guys having some weird results, or maybe results where maybe they want to do better, I don't think it's a big deal. I just think Liquid is the only one who wins, which sounds funny because they won. But for them, it means the most. For everybody else, it's just business as usual.
Yeah, I definitely agree with just the mental side of things, that they actually got that series win against Astralis, which they hadn't been able to do for the entire year. Last year, that was their 7th final attempt against Astralis, and they finally did it, like at the first attempt with this lineup. So that's definitely big. But like Banks said at the start, I feel like after losing Inferno the way they did, getting totally destroyed on Inferno, I felt like just actually coming back from that was an even bigger, like it was even more impressive. So that's just so huge for Liquid and potential future rematches. Like, I 100% agree with Sponge about, like, most players probably not being, or most teams probably not being at their peak after the break. We've seen that happen. Even with Astralis at Stockholm, and basically something similar happened to them there when they lost to North, and this just happens to a bunch of these teams after the break. So it's not a big surprise that we actually got a surprise like that. But for Liquid, it means a lot.
Yeah. I just want to go back to like what Banks said at the beginning, that it's a legit win. I kind of don't feel like it's a legit win, though. I feel like the first thing is it's a practice event for Astralis. They came here just to get some like rounds and get some matches in, get some LAN in their system before the major. So they don't really... I mean, it's stupid to say that they don't care about winning. Of course, they want to win it. But I don't think winning was their reason why they came here. Like, they had nothing to prove by winning this event, and they finished second, which is also, it's not like bad or anything. Of course, the thing they lost, I don't feel like they lost much by not winning. They just gave a bit of the mental edge, as Sponge said, to Liquid. Liquid previously didn't have. And adding to that, like, the whole event was a shit show, as we said, and that, I think, put off a bit of these Astralis players. Just like, you're not in it as you normally would be, just because everything that was going on throughout the whole thing. I feel like they're playing a bit more loose, not really not really putting like the 100% as also Sponge noted before. Like that's my reasoning here. And
oh man, Prof, I don't know, man. If they didn't just get like, thing is, they wrecked Liquid right on the first map, and then you could see times where they're literally trying to fight back. Like, just watch the game.
I mean, of course they win. They won it like fair and square. But I don't think it's like a win that you can compare to a win in a tournament 3 months from now. Like that would be a legit win for me.
Let's wait until the major then. I'm not gonna ream you out over this. I'm a fan of Astralis, how they play. That's the right kind of CS I want to see. But I would say that like they definitely tried to come back in that fucking game, and Liquid were just on point.
One thing about Liquid, I don't know how much you noted it though. I think actually Sponge put out the tweet about their opping at the event and in general like the role changes they had. I feel like Twists was moved on a couple of maps, which
Mirage.
On Mirage especially, he finished on B with Naf. I think Stewie is on A, and
Naf
also
Seek.
Yeah, Naf actually moves his CT spots on Dust 2 are different. Now he's playing the Rotator, and it's Nitro and Stewie on B, and before it was Naf and Taco. So a couple of things are kind of mixed up, but okay, it's been working okay. The thing I'm most like interested about is the opping, and literally everyone opped. I wrote down like Nitro used to be the main opper. He had 10 like sniper kills, could be scout as well. So just looking at the stats, I didn't go like mega deep in it. Twist had 7 op kills. He also like literally on Mirage, he picked up for B apps. He played B apps with the op. And then Stewie had 26, Naf had 22, and Elise had 1, probably just saving. So disregard that. Stewie didn't main op either, even though he had most. It's literally just the final against Astralis on Dust 2. Like he had like 14 op kills or something. So that's the whole thing is kind of a weird situation that they don't have anyone even leaning towards being the main op.
I don't hate that. I don't hate it. I think that they were making it work with Nitro being a main AWP before, but not a star AWP. They made it work as a utility when they needed to hold some territory or maybe impose a little bit of fear. I don't like the fact that what they may potentially become is just a completely sporadic nature, because then it starts to fall back on the individuals rocking up time and time again. But if you look at this team and you consider the fact that I feel like you have like Elise and Twists, for me, are very similar in their playstyle. And then Naf and Stewie are very similar in their playstyle. They'll both go for those closer style plays. And Nitro's kind of just left. He used to be quite an aggressive player years ago, but now he's kind of just left just to do whatever else, just be a standard player. If they learn everything, right? Like, I know that sounds weird, but within a team, you have players who know how to do certain things in strats, or you have players who know how to hold certain bomb sites. The potential, now this is me coming up with this on the bloody moon, right? This is thinking it's crazy stuff, but this team to me genuinely has the possibility to play a spawn-based version of Counter-Strike. And I know that seems like a really absurd concept, but imagine having the entire team being able to do everything on every side. So your executes could be quicker. If you lose a man, you have more depth. On the CT side, you can exploit and use every spawn to your advantage. Dust 2 is a perfect example. The guy who gets the best long spawn every round can take it and get that Molotov in the doors before the T's have a chance to get out. Those little bits and pieces, that is what this team, kind of the potential of them, I kind of saw. Unfortunately, I had to think about the fact that, hey, there's no emotional leader in this team, and I can see some infighting and some people getting upset. But if you didn't have those realms, I think that the individual skill and the hunger to learn from these guys is insane.
Yeah, there is. I think we touched on that at the beginning as well, that this Liquid lineup has qualities that if they want to use them, they have to be a pretty different team to what the old Liquid lineup was. But at the same time, the way they're playing, they're still doing a lot of these like map control plays that they did were pretty sound. They did it like pretty safely. It's not like they're doing like some random stuff. They're doing like the basics pretty well, and then they have like this like additional factor of everyone can do everything on the team, which is different than most of the teams we have right now in CS.
All right.
I mean, if there's some way to consistently beat Astralis, I mean, we can. I guess people will experiment, right? So this might be one of those ways.
Yeah.
Just to throw them off, be a little less predictable, I guess. But we'll see. We'll have to see about that. I mean, so far it's obviously been working. So we're gonna have to see it when it actually. I don't want to say actually matters because it's like.
Yeah, don't you dare. Don't you dare.
I don't want to say that because I agree with the fact that you should not put like the tournament conditions as a big excuse.
Especially not for Astralis.
Exactly. I'm sure it's going to affect some people a little bit. Depends on if the actual like the computers are okay. Like that's I feel like is the biggest part. Like if there are lags and stuff like that, then sure, like I can understand how that's not a legit match really. But if at least the technical conditions are okay, then I feel like it's pretty legit. Like sure, the psychological stuff or just them not being 100% into it because it's a shit event.
There's also
I feel like
one small factor that also I think had to come into it was just literally even when they had the noise canceling headphones, they were playing like 5 feet away from the crowd, which is obviously liquid biased. And if you're just using a normal microphone, which they were, that stuff will pick up the crowd. And there were some situations in the final where I think like 2 guys passed each other in the smoke and people reacted to that. It was not like a classic event.
Although
it happens, but
still.
It doesn't happen on the same. Like ESL has these like white noise stuff. They have like a bigger distance away from the crowd. All of that comes into it. This is literally, I don't know, 20 guys standing 5 feet away from you.
Yeah.
I think that can be like pretty.
But if of all teams, right, it still comes back to the fact that Astralis, like we talked about their mental game, all the things they've got as like a team that other teams don't quite have yet, or haven't positioned themselves in. To me, I'm still sticking with this. Yep, legit win. Liquid.
Wrong.
Let's go on to the next thing. Shut your mouth, Professor. Shut your mouth. Your title literally says wrong about Astralis. So
we fucked up. We fucked up.
What did we
forgot to talk about the top 3 at the start of the show.
No,
that's true. I mean, we can bring it.
It's happening now. You guys
we can
just
reel
deal
it
with this.
All right. Here we go.
So this is a new segment, boys. This is where we get to choose a top 3. I'm going to pick a topic, and these 3 guys are going to give their top 3s. All going to be different and serious.
We don't know what it is.
They've got no idea what it is. This is the only thing they have no information on when it comes to the show. I prep it and throw it in their faces. So first one that we're going to be doing, guys, is top 3 events that were an absolute shit show in CSGO ever. How appropriate.
Holy shit. I mean, the first one I think we can instantly agree on. Like everybody, I think, can instantly say Gaming fucking Paradise #1. Like there's no way.
Wait. Hold up.
Are you sure?
Yes. Yeah, well, no, we can do this. Look, I guess we could all do this relatively quick and we all have our own experiences, right? But you choose who you want to go first. Are we timing them?
Let's just get Prof to go first. Lucas, create a timer of like 2 minutes, my dude. Or do you want longer than that? Do you want longer?
No.
Oh, okay. It sounded like you were like.
I'm not sure. No, Gaming Paradise #1, obviously. The guys didn't have graphics cards. They had to like import them from a Bitcoin mining farm that they like from a friend in Slovenia or whatever from the guy that was running the event. Yeah. And then those were obviously like overheating all of the time because they're like burnt out by Bitcoin mining all the time. Mm-hmm. So Gaming Paradise, legit, didn't pay out the prize money. There's literally, I'm not going to spend any more time on that.
You could spend a year on it, right? Just
number 2 for me, I would say iBUYPOWER Masters, just because of the context of 2019, the standard that is put out at this moment. This is literally, and the teams that they got there, it's insane. So how did this go over? This is very bad. I'm struggling with the third one because I remember a couple of them that were pretty bad. I mean, the PLG one had a lot of issues, but it was kind of like a low-tier event in a region that didn't have that much. So I don't want to go there.
Okay.
I know ClutchCon was pretty bad.
Fuck.
But that one, I don't remember the details, but I think I'm gonna go for ClutchCon. That was like, it had a lot of issues.
What was the LAN where that guy cheated with Word.exe? Did that include as a worse LAN? Because you just didn't check the guy's PC or have an admin stood behind him?
No, because it seems like even the LAN before that, the ESL India finals, he was also cheating there because they found the same files. So that was...
I'm trying to remember as well. I can't.
Come on, Prof. Give us your third. Give us your third.
Well, you did say KotchCon already.
20 seconds. 20 seconds.
I'll say blast Copenhagen with the first day not even happening.
Hold up a second.
After all of the hype.
Chad, you can't jump
That is disappointing.
Wait your turn, Chad. Wait your turn.
All right. I just wanted to defend Blast Copenhagen and say it was the most successful Counter-Strike podcast ever run on Twitch for that first day. So
you guys spoke for what, 4 hours?
It was actually a lot of fun. I know there was problems there, but that was a lot of fun. Obviously, I have a different view because I made everybody look at my face for 2 hours.
Also look, like they actually reeled it in. Like the second day, no issues whatsoever. At least nothing major, right?
Yeah, so when it got to the arena,
they actually came back from that within the tournament. That's not something.
Now that you present yours, to stop
come on, Striker,
just
let's go.
wasting time.
Look, dude, shut up. I 100%, like I said at the start, number one gaming paradise. I don't think there's anybody who can dispute that. Like, there's no fucking way anybody will not have gaming paradise as the number one worst ever CS:GO event. Number two, I thought about KotchCon like way ahead of you. I am going to put the KotchCon as number two. People don't remember this, and to be honest, I don't that much.
But then why is it bad? If you don't remember it being bad, then it wasn't that bad.
No, I mean, I don't remember like the exact details, but I just know there were massive delays, and that I remembered it for years to come after that, and nothing else is in my mind that kind of like overshadows that. So that's why I'm putting KotchCon as second. Because at that, I mean, this is 2014, 2013, I want to say, like early 2013?
2014, because the Brazilians went there before going to the major. So
is that? Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. You're right. That's like early 2014 probably then.
Yeah.
But yeah, people who don't remember, don't even try to watch it back. It was awful. At least from what I remember. And number three, I actually had it in my mind. Fuck, I forgot. I've actually managed to forget, like in the...
How long has it got, Lucas? Tell us the time. 50 seconds.
50 seconds? Give me a second. I'll remember.
Right, Chad, we're going to have to mix up the order every time, because Chad now is at the best time to be able to research like a crazy man.
Yeah.
He's also had a lot of inspiration from us.
Should have went for Counterpit with the hype guy in my hometown. That was also legendary.
I'm genuinely not researching things right now. I promise. I'll keep my hands off the keyboard.
I just try to fucking... It might have been even that I had KotchCon as number three. Fuck.
I'm going to that face it, mate.
I know. It's the ESL ESA Invitational in Dubai. Also, shitloads of problems with like technical issues with PCs. 2015, yeah.
Yeah, yes. Okay, I remember that.
That was it. I couldn't remember what it was. That's just the one that stood out in my mind because it was like a big event as well. We just didn't expect it.
Why was it bad?
Shitloads of technical issues, lots of delays. They just had like the internet crashed for like several hours or something like that.
I'm surprised you didn't buy by Power Masters.
From the technical side, it was really bad. I'm sorry?
I'm surprised you didn't buy by Power Masters, but you're stuck now. You've made your choice.
No. I'm going to go with that.
All right, cool. Let's get him updated, Lucas. Give him his third. Chad, over to you.
I think we're all unanimous on number one, Gamers Paradise. At least it was funny to look at from the outset, so that was pretty cool. I think for number two, it has to be based on my personal experience, and that was the IGN LAN, and that's because I'm a pretty hands-on kind of guy. Like I like trying to give suggestions on how to fix things, and I noticed very early on in that tournament that with the amount of teams that we had, that it was never going to run on time. So very early, me and Gomez, the manager of Renegades at the time, went up to the tournament organizers and said, hey guys, like instead of getting us to go set up a brand new PC every single time, because back then, especially tournaments like that, didn't have SSDs, how about we just literally unplug the computer, shift the computer to where we're playing next, and plug it back in. And they went, no, there'll be plenty of time. Next day, I walk in with a big fucking grin on my face, because sure, things were delayed as bullshit. And then obviously playing a grand final at 4 a.m. in the morning against Cloud9 is pretty unreasonable, even in the realms of 2015. So RGN LAN was really bad for me. Plus we got 16-0'd in the iBUYPOWER tournament, which is the day before. But I digress. And then the last one, I want to really think about there has to be some tournament that happened in Southeast Asia somewhere that was dog shit that I attend. Oh, that fucking minor in Korea. Okay, all you motherfuckers out there who got mad at me for taking technical pauses constantly, the reason that we had to do that was because our coach was on a laptop headset. We're in a booth. He was on Wi-Fi. Right, he was on Wi-Fi, and every time he would talk in a timeout, like that he was allowed to do, it wouldn't come through. Then in the middle of the round, it would lag through with everything he had said in that 30 seconds. So those are personal experiences, one for me. So yeah, that's my 3. I forget the name of it.
Dad, which studio in Korea was that?
I forget.
Oh, I think I've got an idea. Which one it was. No guy in chat. We did not discuss it.
Was that the event where the organizers just decided to invite 2 Korean teams?
It was a minor, so probably. I don't know how.
I think that was it. Exactly. I think that was the event where PGL.
I think that was shit for it. That wasn't in Sponge's time though. That was.
That's what I'm trying to figure out if this is the same sort of. But I mean, maybe it could have been.
I think that was the PGL one was later on.
Vendetta's in chat saying, "How has nobody said TWC 2015?"
I was at the 2016 one, and I didn't remember but the 2015 one is a great option.
That's a pretty good one, I guess.
There were 1,000-hour delays, so what can I say?
Oh, plus at that event as well, I got in an argument with my team owner about drunk why I hadn't been paid. That was pretty fun.
Brilliant. All right, so there's your top 3. So Gaming Paradise, definitely absolute piece of shit then, because everyone...
Thanks, you will now decide which list is the best. That's the kind of the point of this, right?
Okay. Oh, God. Thing is, I like Chad's because it comes from a different perspective, right? But you guys is more on, the viewer perspective,
more legit
right?
than mine.
So, Chad, in your ones, was the viewership also, was the stream and shit also terrible, or was it just because of player perspective? Just so I've got all the information.
Look, the stream was probably fine. Mine was literally just a boots on the ground, fucking hating it from a player perspective. So the broadcast were probably fine in my examples.
Okay. I think one of the key thing is that it doesn't matter who has objectively the best list, is who gave the best argument for his list.
You want me to pick it on that? Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't take into account all of the. You don't know all of the details. You have to go on what
just
we
off
said.
What you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe a bit of your knowledge as well. So.
Okay, well, Sponge, saw you're out of the race, so it's between Striker and Profs. I'm going to go with Striker because Prof, I don't agree with the Blast Copenhagen one at all.
I don't either.
The only thing is that I would literally just switch Clutch God and iBUYPOWER Masters
I got
around.
a fucking trophy, guys.
Striker's first ever trophy. There we go, boys.
That's not true. That's not true.
Okay,
I won a CS 1.6 tournament 10 years ago.
Hey, okay. Well, you're still somewhat relevant, Striker. You're in the same boat as me. But the only thing I would change on Striker's list is I think iBUYPOWER Masters should definitely be in there because that was just because it's the year and everything. So your reasoning for iBUYPOWER Masters, Prof, was so good.
Yeah, I agree.
Strikers in overall the top 3, we're going with that.
I went for an edgy pick with Blast.
Yeah, you did. You trying to be edgelord over there. I'll let you.
I don't know what
foreign
flows
status
down your way. So for the next time, this
it's so now okay, I can be bribed. You guys can PayPal me. The Striker, you better get fucking money ready, otherwise you'll never win in shit again.
I gave you a network cable. I should have won by default.
Chad, it's the love you give me all the time when we're at these events, which will make you win in the future. Don't worry, mate. Don't worry. Next one we're going on to is Simple being the HLTV #1. It is confirmed for last year. Brilliant for that young man. He finally achieves one of his goals. Kind of the direction I wanted to take with this, and I think I'm going to start with you, Striker, on it, was obviously the factors that come into it. Because a lot of people online, on all the comments and stuff, are like, well, we don't understand why it works. Device, he won more trophies. He should fucking have it, da-da-da. And it's for me, just my personal opinion and perspective is, this is best player in the world, right? Actual ability. And I think you could put Simple in any fucking team, and that guy is just going to carry like a motherfucker. He's going to dome heads, he's going to rock up and do what he does best. He does it in FPL games. If you watch his damn stream, this kid's just wrecking people all day long.
I mean, the one thing, I guess the most basic thing you have to understand is that it's not the trophies that give them a high placing, it's how they contributed to those trophies, right? It's you have it backwards. That's the problem that people have. mostly when it comes to like understanding how this ranking works. And I'm not gonna say like I understand it 100% because I'm not the one doing it. It's all Peter. Like it's literally nobody else had a say in.
Tell
in
us
the
how many
actual
people
placings.
actually knew, by the way, before.
Just
so people out
him
there
and Luis.
understand. So
As far as I know,
knew.
it was just 2 people, and it wasn't me even. It was Luis, who is the
Yeah.
editor-in-chief, Mira. Just because he was just like dispensing who's doing what and stuff like that, who was writing which player. So he was those 2 were the only 2 that actually knew the whole list from the get-go. Like the separate writers only knew whatever they were writing like in a few days' time. I think only Prof knew his at the like you did device, right?
Yeah,
he probably knew
device
yours like a week earlier, right?
Yeah, because he was at iBUYPOWER Master, so I had to do the interview kind of part in advance, even though we didn't do it in advance. We did it at the event at the end.
Which of you was at iBUYPOWER Masters from HLTV?
It was Lucas, but he did the interview with him there. And then, Lucas is in the chat, actually just said, like, I was at most of the events out of those lists, like the top 3 worst events. He was in Dubai, right? He was a gaming paradise.
I don't think he was with us in Dubai yet, or was he?
No, that was you and Joao.
No, it was only Joao. I think we didn't have an interviewer there.
Yeah,
I think I have a feeling.
He did a bunch of. He did the iBUYPOWER Masters and this and PWC. I think
Bircho was already also at a few of those.
So what are we talking about again? Oh, about the top 20 list. The best thing ever is people going like full conspiracy theory, and like after people are, oh, this is obviously that device is gonna be the #1. Look at this reasoning. Yeah. They're gonna have this is so biased. This is so bad. And then later people started saying, like, after the outrage kind of started, and Peter put out a couple of tweets explaining how he does like some rankings.
Yeah.
Then people started saying, "Oh, they're changing it now because people are going to be so outraged that device is #1. Now they changed it to simple being #1." I'm like, what the fuck? Literally, whatever you say, people will be used against you in some like, I don't know, absolutely mental way. So I was enjoying the all of the comments and people making the list. This is 100% how it's going to be, and no, not correct. So that was fun.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, the big thing that you have to take into consideration is just that Simple had a year that no other player probably ever had. Like, even when you look at Get Right in 2013, or like even like when the ranking wasn't done in 2012 and into 2013, like even that is very hard to compare against Simple. I feel like that could be like on a similar level, and obviously the context there is completely different. Get Right at that point, or even NIP as a whole, didn't really have competition. Simple is not even part of the best team. It's not even close to being part of the best team in this year, and that's the first time that this happened as well. I think I don't want to say anything wrong, but I don't think we've had a #1 outside of the best team so far.
I mean, Get Right in 2014.
They were still the best, I guess. About close. Actually, no. Well, with Static, I guess not.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but that is one thing to take into account. Like, Astralis had all 5 players in the top 5, but they didn't have the #1 player, and like Electronic was 4th. That just shows like how much these 2 guys have been carrying in this year, and how much like the other 3 guys in that team. I mean, okay, Flamey has been okay. Can't really put much against him, but Edward and Zeus, how much they have not been contributing, considering they have the best and the 4th best player in the year, and they won like 4 tournaments, I think, something like that, and they finished like the year as like 3rd or something like that. A lot more potential about Navi in this year, considering they had like Simple and Electronic.
4 tournaments,
yeah.
I don't really have a lot to contribute here because I, for basically the whole year, just state Simple as the god of Counter-Strike. So considering the way that he plays the game and, you know, how good he is and what he's been able to do with Navi, for me, in my mind, regardless of the HLTV.org rankings, he is the best player. I'd be surprised if he can have another year like he did last year, though. If he can continue and stay at that level, that's crazy impressive.
But I mean, if somebody can do it, it's him. Like, it's literally like he's just been defeating every kind of barrier that we thought there was, like in terms of people's peaks and stuff like that. So I feel like if somebody can break through that, it's him again, basically.
Do we want to quickly move on to this so we can spend a lot of time on the final topics then? Because
I want that, like, so someone in the chat to just like a detail about writing the things. Like, as Striker said, like, people don't know all of the things in advance. We get, like, whoever is writing a single piece gets to know about that number, that placing, like 2 or 3 days in advance. Contacts the player, gets the interview done, and writes everything in like 2 or 3 days. So no one knew all of it. You know what you know like a couple of days before it's announced, and that's how it kind of rolls down. But the thing is, maybe we can touch on the next year and our kind of predictions for that. What do we see happening in the next year? Who is going to finish in the top 20? Do you think anyone is going to be like? Do you have a clear pick for number 1?
Can we wait until we see them play the major first? Like, as much as, like, because right now we only have data on a very small amount of teams, right? I think, like, if we want to look at the prodigies, these kids coming up, they're going to have to rely...
is a fucking obvious one.
Yeah, but, like, right now, to say that, like, Vitality need to do what Mousesports did by playing every tournament they can and getting recognition to start getting invites to the bigger tournaments, or going through the gauntlet of online qualifiers. So... to say that ZywOo is a fantastic player and would rank within my top 20 mechanical, like best players in the world at the end of this year, in mine, that is likely. But if Vitality don't get the opportunity to compete a lot, then unfortunately he's just not going to get a chance to put his name in the hat. So at least let's just see them compete at the major before. Unless you guys want to throw outliers in there, I'm happy to do that. But I couldn't tell you who I think is going to be number 1.
No, I mean that's yeah. No. We can easily say that it's going to be simple again, but it's like, who knows, right? This year's Navi could just break down completely. Simple joins another team, just doesn't really fit in there as much, stuff like that. A lot of things can happen, so it's very hard to do anything like that. But I mean, ZywOo is just like probably the player that everybody has in their minds right now, especially after the minor.
But do you actually think he could break like into the top 10, like in his first year? Like
probably not. Probably not because of what Sponge said.
Yeah, it's pretty rare that we had players jump into the top 10. I think Simple's first year was like a high ranking, but at the same time he was on the top level before that, but just didn't get the opportunity. I feel like this will be that year for ZywOo, that he will maybe, I don't know, maybe
top
not.
Top 20 then? He jumps into top 20, potentially top 10, depending on how their lane goes event-wise.
I would say like 15 to 20 is pretty reasonable, but of course that doesn't mean it will happen. Yeah, in the top 10, I feel like it's pretty hard to say at this point that he would make it.
All right. Well, let's start looking at the Asia and North American minors, guys. And this is where it gets interesting, right? We've had Europe, we've had the CIS regions, we've talked about the upsets and what's happened. But for Asia and North America, with so many of the North American teams already kind of getting through to the major point, at least the big boys, and even in Asia, right? Tyloo's not there anymore. It's not just going to be Tyloo and Renegades. We actually get to see a different team come through and get a shot. This goes to kind of what you were saying, Chad, in terms of these regions being able to level up through the majors. So I'm going to start with you, Chad. Is there some clear winners here? Break it down for us.
We're starting with Asia, or
man, your region. Let's go.
So Asia, I think Renegades are in a Mousesports position, but they've had an extra week, and I know they boot camped in Europe, so they should be up to scratch. If they fail, if they don't qualify at all, that would be one of the biggest. That's a bigger surprise than Mousesports not making it, in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that they're much more hungry than Mousesports are. These players, like half of them didn't even play, like when did JKS play like a top 16 of a major the last time? That was something we talked about a long time ago.
Yes, I won to Cologne 2015, where I was the highest rated player for my team. Anyway, let's stay on topic here. We don't want to talk about the good days. I think that outside of that, the clear next two teams are Greyhound and MVP. I think there is a power vacuum in China. Clearly Tyloo, and then the next two, and obviously Captain Mo and Didi, if they want to continue playing, will have to filter into whatever comes next. But that's for after this cycle's over. So on paper, I think you're looking at Renegades, and then Greyhound and MVP PK taking up the second and third spots. Goes to Beyond. Aquas, they're all Aqueous. How are we calling this? Or whatever.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I have no
I'll ask them
clue.
tomorrow. I'll make sure we say it correctly. These guys are all like severe underdogs, and the Chinese teams, we know that the individual skill is there. It's just, the fact of, is it going to click? Is it not going to click? And in best of threes, most of these teams are going to have really weak map pools. So I'm not expecting a lot from the outliers at all.
They added Imi as a coach as well, the old NRG coach. Well, a short stint in NRG. British guy. I thought that was quite interesting for that to be added.
Where did they get? Which team?
For the Equius club, the one he was just on about, however you say it.
They have Imi as their coach?
Yeah, they've added Imi as the coach. Happened in December. I was speaking to Imi recently. Obviously, Brits, we stick together, blah, blah.
It's Equus, I guess.
Yeah, could be.
The thing is, like, the funny part about them is they literally play in Europe. They play Europe qualifiers all the time. They play, like, this Anarchist guy, he plays, like, FPLC. Like, he's legit European in the way... And their opportunities are European. They play, like, all of the qualifiers that are out there. So, in a way, they have a lot more opportunities and a lot more exposure to the top scene, which could, like, lend to them being a bit different than the rest, but at the same time, they're like in Europe, they're nothing. They're like not
they get
wrecked at all.
Yeah, they get wrecked.
So it's kind of interesting from that perspective that they're playing the Asia Minor, even though legit, like ping-wise, they play in Europe. So.
Does anyone know how that works? Like,
well, I mean, they have the Middle Eastern qualifier,
yeah,
so they actually have
that qualifier
solid...
was kind of a shit show in itself because a lot of those countries, even though they're close, their routing is so bad that they can't play against each other on normal servers. So like one server is like, if it's in Dubai, then for the Dubai players it's great, and for the next country it's like 150 ping. So then they play in like Frankfurt servers or whatever. And there was something in this qualifier that wrecked everyone, and it wasn't good. That's all I remember. Don't know the details.
Think of all that money, they just throw some money at it, sort out all the internet issues.
But I mean, looking generally looking at this Israeli team and beyond as well, those two are definitely out of the picture. Like, it feels like those two will just go out in last place of the groups.
I mean, like, I
don't know about I don't know enough about the Israeli team.
Ghost is an underdog in it, yeah. Definitely Ghost have looked good across the Asian region. Like, they have these little moments where they shine. I like the fact that, what's his face? HSK went back to the lineup. That was so much better. He didn't fit well on MVP. So that looked good. That was a nice choice by them. I think overall, I'd love to see Greyhound take it to Renegades and just fucking like show them that we want it better. Like, we want this more. That's the thing I'm most excited for.
But I mean, Renegades just have too many good players, like too many better players than Greyhound. I feel like for this to happen. Like, sure, it could be just like the domestic matchup, whatever type thing. But I just feel like Renegades have just pound for pound.
Oh yeah, on paper they should win 100%.
Greyhounds did beat them online though in the qualifier for the Minor in the best of 3, which is interesting in itself. But that was shortly after they made the lineup change and they got like gratisfaction from Greyhound. That is just like a small asterisk over there to take into account. But of course, for me, Renegades is like a clear favorite, and I hope Greyhound make it. Just if nothing for the Dick Stacy stick.
He best draw something amazing for that. That guy is a character.
I mean, the thing
I
is,
agree with that actually.
I feel like that would help them stabilize as the #1 team, like that is still in Australia, and could like the resources, sticker money would help. Maybe they can make another roster change that they need from one of the players from the other Australian teams to make like a team that could compete overseas.
There's definitely room in Australia right now, excluding the Renegades guys, to make a strong Australian team that would just win everything in the region, because there are so many different qualifiers that are going to different teams at the moment that they're kind of spreading that wealth, which is great because everybody's getting a chance to go over and get international experience. But I think if you grabbed a few players from each of the top teams, and if Chelios decides to come back to the region, then I think you could probably really have a strong unit. But look, for this Minor in a whole, it's going to be one of those things because they're a team who have a lot of experience overseas and against these Asian teams. So I think that they should know how to handle the play style by now. They should definitely have covered that, or at least be prepared.
Yeah.
I mean, that's more or less it for the Asia Minor. Not much to cover there. It's like
the American
straightforward.
One gets a little bit more spicy though, right?
The Brazilian Minor.
This is Brazilians in full force. Let's say like 1, 2, 3 American teams, then everyone else Brazilian except Bravado.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's crazy.
There's more Brazilian teams than North American teams. Let's put it that way.
1, 2.
So
you're
by the way, you called it the NA minor, right? So
yeah.
look at the irony of
it's
that.
America's
it's
minor.
America's minor. Yeah, that's what I'm getting at pretty much. There's 4 Brazilian teams and 3 North American teams
and a South African
and
team
a South African
just
team.
for the spice.
Just for the lols, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to see Bravado do well, boys.
That is kind of interesting though. That like Bravado doesn't have like. African scene in general doesn't have like a direct way into the major system. They literally have to fly out to somewhere to play a minor qualifier, be it Asia or Europe or whatever. And because they're not, most of them are not that good. Like the North African teams, like they can play maybe in Europe, but yeah, they're not that good. And that's just literally South Africa that has one good team, and they're in North America now. So.
But I mean, talk about being separated, right? There's like, sure, Australia has it pretty rough, but this is very similar to. I mean, South Africa is very, very similar to that.
It's very admirable what they've done here by choosing to relocate. That's the same kind of thing we had to do back when we were Vox Eminor / Renegades, was because the opportunities to be able to compete at this level weren't really there. Obviously, we had a process to get to the majors, but that was actually by our own doing, by going to some of the very early events and trying and putting our name on the map. We weren't really handed anything. A lot of the things we had to do ourselves. But I think that this rule change to allow them to compete in this region is very good initiative by whoever allowed it. If it was ESL pushing for it, if it was Valve who said whatever, I don't really care. The fact that they've come to that level is fantastic because it gives them an opportunity. And this for them, I understand that there's that whole campaign going on for them right now. But that aside, and my thoughts on that campaign aside, I think that if they're able to qualify here in a top 2 or even that 3rd position and make it to the major, then they legitimize themselves. They give themselves the sticker money. They give themselves a big amount of prize money, and they definitely put their name on the map to potentially be picked up by a bigger organization in the North American region, like Renegades, where I don't know what their contract situation is like, but if they're able to do this and show that they can compete like this, then they're kind of stamping their ticket. This is what I was hoping for Space Soldiers before Zentares left. They were without an org. They're a good team. They practice hard. If they can prove it, we know that they're a good team, but if they can show everybody at the major system that they're in there, then of course someone's going to pick them up. And I think this is a similar situation for Bravado. But right here, if NRG don't win, right? The thing is, with them falling out and not being able to get into the system for the London major, they've already had their Mousesports moment, right? They've already had that. Yep. So there's no way that they're fucking resting on any laurels here. These guys definitely will be taking this one real seriously because in my mind, they're a very strong team. And I think here they should be the clear favorite to maybe not demolish everybody, but make it through with relative ease, maybe drop a map, but still, coast through and grab that #1 spot for this America's Minor.
Yeah. Just shortly going back to the Bravado thing, this is just going to be a very defining moment for them because of everything that you've said, but also because of how much pressure this puts on them, right, as well, because this is basically their livelihood, right? If they don't make it to the major, and given how the campaign is going, they're probably not going to stay in North America unless some other team just pops up. But obviously that ties into it as well, right? It's not just the sticker money that could save them. It could be just like literally them having the merits to go to a different organization, to a new one, by advancing to the major. So this I feel like could either turn into them actually like living up to that, or just crumbling under the pressure and just basically bombing out really, really early.
Yeah, as you guys said about NRG, and I touched on it in the Master Better segment. I think, did you like? Oh no, it's just the camera.
I don't know, it's just on me.
Lucas is sleeping for some reason. Let's just watch. Let's just look at Striker. I don't think NRG will slip up twice. I don't think that can happen. Especially, I mean, after you do it once, you're going to be like mega prepared. You won't allow that to happen again. And then they'll be in the major cycle where they should be, considering how they've been playing for the last year. But for me, the most interesting storyline, just personally...
No. Are you going to say it?
No,
okay,
it's Furia. It's Furia who didn't sell K Cerato to whatever, to MIBR, right? They kept him. And now they're going to be able to show, like, can they do something with this guy, with this lineup that didn't change for the last, whatever, 2 or 3 months when people want to buy their potentially best player. Even though this Uric guy has the highest rating by far. It's like 1.3 rating, mostly online though, and like lower tier matches, but still. So there is obviously some potential in that team. So let's see if the decision to not sell like their talent made sense. I mean, ask too much essentially for him to be bought out. That is the main storyline for me.
If reports are to be believed, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. There is some truth to it, definitely.
I think it'll also be interesting with E United, right? Obviously, they had the lots of roster issues, but on paper, looking at these teams, first of all, I obviously am drawn to NRG. Then I think Bravado has a skill ceiling and probably the way they approach the game, a chance to sneak into one of those spots. But then it becomes it's unknown. Like Bravado is like a dark horse, right? That's where I'm putting them. NRG are my favorite. But then for everybody else, like it's all over the shop. Envious with Carrigan. What has he possibly been able to achieve with this team? You're going to think that you're a better player than everybody else on your roster, right? Like. And I hope Carrigan plays like that. Like I hope that he plays with his dick in his hands and he fucking because realistically he's playing against a lower skill like bunch of teams. That's just the way it is. This is a chance for him to stat pad on HLTV.org, really, in my mind. So there's a lot
also
of rosters.
Prove himself, right? Because fucking hell, that Envy roster was dog shit.
Well, he doesn't have to prove himself, I don't think. Because
prove that he can raise a team, right? Like that,
oh, sure.
From the level they were at to now.
This from like we were talking about last time. If North and Optic completely shut the bed, that Carrigan should be given like a blank check to make whatever Danish team that he wants, right? Well, after seeing what North did and the way they approached, I think they were very nervous because they were the 10th best team in the world at the time. They've now dropped to 11th, and Ence has gone to 10th. But they're a good team, man. Like I think North, once they get their shit together, they're a good team, and I have a lot of faith in that team. They're all of similar ages. They all have a similar mindset. I just think they were very nervous being in the position they were in. I know that's no excuse, but I have faith in them. So this isn't clear, this minor for me. I have NRG at the top. I have Bravado as a dark horse. The rest of it is a wait and see moment. E United, they obviously have some skillful players, right? Like I think what I can say is the 4 Brazilian teams. I think they're in a similar position, or the Brazilian region right now is in a similar position as what I just said about the Australian region. There is probably a lot of players who we could pick and choose from these squads and put them into one team to form a strong roster. The problem is, I don't know, personality or buyouts, or they've signed up to contracts. All those bits and pieces play into this. Because think about these names. We've seen them quite a lot over the last couple of years, especially the likes of Showtime, ZQKS, we've heard of them. SHZ is another one. Yell, Cello, Destiny, KNG, of course, BIT. Like, these are all names that we know with the Brazilian region. So I think it might just be a matter of putting all the right pieces of the puzzle into the right place, like kind of like what Fallen was doing back with the Gamers Academy thing, right? That was a great initiative by Fallen. So I don't have a lot to say about this one. I just have NRG. That's it.
I want to challenge one of your opinions that Kerrigan could be like stat padding at this event. I feel like unlike the Asia minor, people here are actually pretty skilled. Like these Brazilian players aren't like someone you can bully in a 1v1 duel. Of course, CS is not 1v1 duels, but just looking at it aim-wise, some of these players here will be pretty on point, I feel like. And it is the Brazilian guys. They have, even though a bunch of them are like 1, 2, 3, 4, no, actually only two or three are playing in North America. The others qualified through South America. But still, they are exposed to the top scene. So I don't think it will be that easy for him to be like stat padding in any regard.
Yeah, maybe to add a bit more context there, I definitely think there are skillful players in this. What I mean is when you go from playing against the likes of Astralis, when you go from playing against the likes of Na'Vi, you go from playing against the top 10 to 5 teams in the world on a very consistent basis, to now playing against teams that are going to have clear gaps, going to have clear exploitable things as a unit. If you were to compare it as head-to-head duels, Carrigan is obviously losing out to a lot of these players just purely on a mechanical basis. But when you have the decent level of mechanics that Carrigan has and his understanding of Counter-Strike, he is going to be seeing and I hope seeing and taking advantages of these gaps and getting plays and clutches and multi-kills that I know he's possible of, against opponents who are not as well drilled, well structured, and ready as a unit as the top 10, top 5 teams in the world that Karrigan has been playing against consistently for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Look, the way I see Envy, if I can draw similarities to the CIS minor, I would call them the runtime of the Americas minor. Because it's kind of the same thing, right? You have 3 veteran people there, and 2, okay, Drone is the one, the rookie one, I guess, that you had.
I mean, he's been around for quite a while.
He's been around, but
I still remember like the Launders video, Drone, locked in, whatever.
Oh,
you remember that video?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. But yeah, I just see that team as very similar, and I think the same thing that happened to Runtime is gonna happen to them, which is that they're just probably gonna get destroyed.
Yeah,
that's how I look at it.
I agree. I don't see them being. I mean, we can know obviously, but we're working just on name value right here, and I think that is it.
All right. Well, I was going to say as well, Prof, just before when you were shitting on what the Asian minor is, yes, the teams are not as skilled, but they do provide some of the most entertainment, like one-player fucking mad modes of like aces and just individual fragging. Do not shit on them fuckers, man.
You mean Asian minor?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Chinese players always have like great nicknames, like Bottle. Literally, he was destroying at Star Series, I think.
This is what I mean, right? Like, so you as much as you can talk about stat pattern, we can shit on the Asian minor as like what they can do skill-wise at times in terms of teamwork and things, but expect some just mad fragging stuff that you just go, what the fuck? How did that even just happen? Because from commentating a lot of that, it's like, what the hell is going on? This doesn't make any sense. Are we all feeling cool and sorted now?
I just want to feel like is there someone that wants to make like a bold prediction on this minor? Like
MVP are gonna make it through in some way.
That's not a too bold of a prediction, is it?
I'd say it is because they shit the bed on land every time, and I really like these guys.
Yeah.
Like I even remember ones where I've played events against them back in the day. Some of these old ass players. I am just hoping at one point that experience pays off. My problem is they've got too much of the experience and not enough of the young gun powers. I think Vendetta said in chat there's a couple of the players they could bring in from Gosu and swap them around a little bit, but eventually that mix of like solo, term, glow and stuff need to be mixed up a little bit. Like there are massive changes that need to come in. Keep maybe 1 or 2 of the super old school guys and then just bring in the fucking young guns from Korea, man.
Yeah. Did we have any viewer questions or anything?
Well, I was going to do this, right? So you can take my job if you want, Professor.
I was just wondering now, is there anything?
I'm already hating you enough today, so I can just continue this, man. I'm just going to fucking wreck you for the rest of the weeks of shows.
I mean,
I just realized he still has the same status. Wrong about Astralis.
Wrong about Astralis. Liquid equals a legit win. Chad agrees with me, and Strike has failed predictions.
Time will prove me right.
Time will prove you wrong. Shut your mouth.
I guess we'll see about that.
If people want to ask questions in chat, far away. We've got some we picked out already because we did a Twitter post earlier as well, so we've got a couple to choose from. But just don't have dumbass questions where people are like, "What do you think will happen with Na'Vi?" And like, just keep it some relevant
please
stuff.
Don't ask about something that we've already talked about on the show. Yeah. If you've only come in and just look at the topics that we've
you can still ask, and we'll just ignore it.
Exactly. You can ask, but we'll.
All right. So the first one we have is Chungus from Twitter. He said, following the recent announcements related to the major format, wouldn't it be better if the final was a best of 5? And I think, yes, it should be a best of 5. Best of 5 finals are the best. And now I'll wait for Sponge to probably disagree with me.
No, I think best of 5 finals are the best.
So you do agree with me still.
That I would assume be a Valve pushback. Maybe not necessarily like a
common sense.
I know about
well.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, well, look, I'm gonna tell you the reason that I like best of 5 finals. I think that as the tournament progresses, you obviously ramp up through formats, and the intensity ramps up as well. Now, Counter-Strike is a game where there's 7 maps in the pool, and when you get to the very end, I'm going to use UFC as a backup point here. In UFC, let's say that the world number 2 is fighting the world number 7, or let's say the world number 3 is fighting whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's just not a title fight. They're not fighting for the belt. They play. They do 3. They don't play. There's 3 rounds, right? When they get to a title fight, they do 5 rounds. Now, I think when you are fighting for the best team in the world, which is what carries with all of us, like at that period in time, the best. If you win the major for that point, that's our pinnacle, right? That's the top of the Counter-Strike mountain. Yeah. That a best of 5 shows true depth. Sure, it's a marathon. Sure, it's very long. They can go for up to 8 hours. There's no denying that. But a best of 5 shows depth in map pool to the biggest extent. Now, sure, why don't we do a best of 7? Okay, well, let's not get fucking ridiculous. I'm not trying to be insane here. And I think that a best of 5 allows a team who maybe has a slow start and loses the first 2 maps, they get a chance to go for that reverse sweep, which I'm pretty sure no one's done still, right? Like, yes. This is like, so your argument, well, it's impossible, no one's done it. But I think, imagine if a team did it. I think in my mind, a best of 5 grand final, especially for the major title, considering how much is on the line, I like best of 5s. So yeah, I think it would be cool.
I'm just gonna leave Prof to say the opposite of that.
I
he
personally
has not been a big fan.
Oh, I personally hate best of 5s. It's just, for me,
are you a fan of Counter-Strike, Prof?
But that's a stupid argument. I watch Counter-Strike. I watch Counter-Strike, and I watch one map. I watch the second map. I watch the third map, and then it's the fourth map, and then I literally need to get something to eat. It's been like 4 hours. I need to cook something.
That's what my desk segments are for, bro. So you can go and get something to eat while I'm talking.
But what if I want to get all the hype. I want to get the breakdowns. I want to get the replays. I get the round, then you through the smoke, then Sponge is yelling, saying cunt and stuff. That's the exciting part as well. You want the whole experience. I want to just sit down, be glued to the screen, but it's impossible. So I go and I start cooking. Then I need to go to the toilet. Then I spill something on the ground because I'm clumsy as fuck. Then I need to clean that up, and it's it's already 7 rounds into the fourth map. Then I ate, and I'm sit down on my couch and I want to watch, but then I get sleepy because I just ate a lot of food.
What kind of
and then I fall asleep.
What the fuck is this?
Because it's someone is bashing one team is just wrecking the other team. It doesn't make sense. It's 7 hours. Literally, you need to block out your whole day to watch a game.
And that's unreasonable. Else in this
it's unreasonable.
Look,
and of course,
I can understand the argument against the time constrictions, right? Not just because you basically.
I didn't even finish, but okay, I'm letting Striker to add in a bit. Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were finished.
No.
But I can understand that point of view just because it is a long time, especially when you have reasonable breaks for the teams now. Previously, obviously they were pushed to kind of to start the next map as soon as possible. Now it's sure, it still happens, but you still get reasonable breaks in the meantime. So the entire best of 5 can span 6-7 hours, a good 7 hours, I guess, if it goes to all 5 maps and they're reasonably close at least. It could go even much worse, and I think we've seen that a couple of times as well. So I can understand that point of view, and that not very few people can actually sit and watch the entire best of 5 final.
There's the argument that literally Sponge said himself that I don't think we ever had a reverse sweep. So if you lose the first 2 maps, it doesn't, you most likely won't win it. So what's the point? You could have just the best of 3. There's also the point of just player fatigue. Players aren't used to playing best of 5s because we don't play them, except sometimes in the grand final. And then when it goes to the 4th or 5th map, people are not in their normal shape. They're literally not preparing to play this much. And then the quality of CS goes down. And that's one of the drawbacks as well. And it also takes away from the veto perspective. I think it's not that important, but it's kind of a part of it that you need to do the pick ban. And there's something in it are you going to pick this map? Are you going to ban this map? When you play a best of 5, you're literally banning the map you don't play, and then you're playing the rest, even though there's a counter argument with the Liquid Astralis final, but never mind. But I feel there's enough of drawbacks combined with the event schedule in arena, time constraints that make it the worst. You literally need a whole day that can last from 3 or 4 hours for a best of 5 to 8 hours.
Can I don't disagree with any of the points that you've made there. I can definitely see that side of the argument. But if I posed it to you from this position, and I pretended that I was a tournament organizer for a minute, and my sales team have sold a certain amount of minutes watched, and I gave you the option of watching a best of 5 final between the best 2 teams in the world at the major versus having a show match with washed up Counter-Strike players and casters to inflate our narcissistic egos, and then a best of 3 grand final, what would you pick?
I would just skip the show match and watch the best of 3 final.
Sure,
but I'm not looking at it from a tournament organizer making money perspective. Just from enjoyment and from how I see like how I enjoy CS the most.
Okay, so factored into my position on best of fives, I still personally prefer a best of five over a best of three as a grand final, especially in this circumstance. But factoring in external factors and things that probably the general viewer wouldn't think about, there are reasons for best of fives. Or there are reasons that you see show matches that don't really make any sense. Yeah. They have a purpose. It's not just there just so you guys, you know, fucking have to watch some Muppets like us run around and play some dumb Counter-Strike. There are reasons for that level of entertainment. But I can see your side of the argument with those points. They are. No,
I mean, I understand why people do them, because we saw events. We saw like Star Series season 4, I think, had like the third place decider match before the grand final, because they just needed something to fill in the day, and that ended up being pretty bad because that decider went like 3 maps overtime, and then the grand final was later than expected. Put it off prime time. It was a bad decision. Then they went into like adding
you
show
wanted to
matches.
say without it, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I was politically correct, obviously, here on the show. But then they wanted to add like a show match just to have something to warm up the crowd and to warm up the viewers back home and have more hours. And the last day should be the most watched day because you have the most hype and all of that. So I agree why people have best of fives, but I personally think they're not like anything. I don't want them. Best of 3, best.
Don't agree with you, but I get your
That was
points.
a long viewer question.
Yeah, that was that. we went on that one quite a while. All right, next one. Mr. CyberX, he says, what do you guys think about the influence of orgs on the meta? I guess he means, well, yeah, because they've been used more than Kriegs, I guess, yeah.
How does
AUGs.
AUG, yeah.
Oh, not orgs.
This happened the third time today.
Really?
Me and Chad have done
Yeah,
this
yeah. I call it an org, right? That's the way
I
we
call it an
pronounce
AUG,
it.
and Chad is fucking me with his stupid
I
Australian
mean, it makes sense
pronunciation.
to just emphasize the U, just to kind of.
AUG.
I'll just say AUG here for this purpose. But I made a tweet the other day because watching this unfold, it can be pretty jarring if you haven't watched CS in some time. But if you play and you're not just a viewer and you've noticed the changes and stuff, and you use their weapon, you can see it has definite. There's a lot of things that make it better than the M4. Now, a position that I have to obviously see it more, and I have to practice a bit more with it to really understand the way it plays. But I wrote, if the AUG meta keeps trending upwards in this manner, I suspect we'll see some form of an adjustment to the price or weapon stats within the first 6 months of 2019. I think it somewhat mitigates situations where CTs can't afford the full buy of utility. It feels like you can take more audacious angles duels. Now, what I mean by that, if people don't understand that wording, is you can play positions with the AUG where you are holding an angle more aggressively because you have more confidence in the guns either scoped in or the range. You know, you might be able to play positions differently as opposed to where you normally would have to use utility to take control of that position. This also filters in late round. If you use all your utility quite early, you can play more aggressive angles, knowing that you can get the bullets off in that smaller spread spray pattern when you're scoped in, and the damage at closer points. Also, the chance for one bullet headshot also plays in a huge factor. So the meta at the moment, I think that we're going to see this at the major almost not exclusively being bought. We will see M4s, and based on Nico's tweet of saying that it's a noob gun.
Noob gun.
First of all, if this is the way the game's being played, you kind of just have to use it if you want to win, right? Because it is better than the M4. That's just the way it is. But I think that we're going to see, like we saw in iBUYPOWER tournament, teams having 5 AUGs, having like several Kriegs on the T side. I watched the complexity game. On the first gun round, 2 of them had Kriegs. I was like, what the fuck? Like, they lost the pistol round as well, and they were prioritizing that. So obviously it's very powerful in practice.
Liquid did it in the final against the Straws too. First gun round, they had three Kriegs on the T side.
Which team was it that just rocked out with 5?
You see random shit happening, like a guy with a Krieg standing T-spawn on Dust 2 and winning the duel against an Opper that picks door. It's like, because you one bullet headshot him.
That's pretty rough, yeah. By the way, I think that's like the only place, if you both stand like all the way on like the opposite sides of the map, just like a nerdy kind of detail, right? I think that's the only place where the Krieg does not one shot.
All right, there we go.
All the way from one side to the other.
Complexity, they went for the 5 Aug play.
The liquid.
And they have Rambo in there.
That was dope.
They had Rambo as their coach.
I'm down for that, man. That was ridiculous.
I wanted to say, like, as Sponge said, like, there could be changes. I think, like, after the major, probably the price will go up a bit. I don't remember even what it was before. It was like $200 or $300.
3.5 was, I think, 3.3 was Aug, I think.
And exact 3,000 was the Krieg, I think. So it's like $300. So it could go back to that, or maybe go like $200 more expensive than the AK M4. Something like that will happen, but it's obvious that Valve needed to put it down to this price for people to actually try it out and see that the gun is actually useful. So people now started to do it, and they will continue to play with it in some manner, even if the price goes up. Like slightly,
I think they will not. Yeah, exactly. I don't think they should adjust the price. I also don't think that's what they're going to do. Just because that was the main reason why people didn't want to play with it, right? They had a better, cheaper option. And as a CT side, you already have problems.
Because they didn't try it, and they didn't play with it.
I don't think so. It's because just 3.3, just looking at CT economy and how it works, how you have to spend more money already, even with the M4s. Like you're not gonna consider buying anything more expensive than that. So that was the biggest problem with the Aug before, right? So I think they're just going to adjust the base stats if it ever becomes a problem.
But that doesn't make sense. Like, what is the point of that gun if you nerf like its accuracy?
I mean, they could just slightly balance it out towards the M4, just doing slight adjustments. Like that's the problem with balancing weapons, right? You change one slight thing, and it just like makes the gun completely unusable.
I don't see
right?
what like the point of both guns is they do more damage in like farther ranges,
and the scope, yeah,
and they use the scope so it's like a longer range weapon. So I mean, the only thing they can do is maybe put down the fire rate, so it's not that good at close range, and it's still.
I mean, that's what they did with the Silence M4. You know what that did to that weapon. So that's why I don't know. I'm skeptical about like what they can do to make it still usable, but not like overwhelmingly so.
I think if they put a larger price, but not as large as it was, like as high as it was before.
I just feel like that's just going to make everybody just go back to the M4. I think that would be just a massive.
I just think don't change it. Leave it as it is. I like what it's at.
I agree with Prof. I think that the money will make the most sense because I don't think the players definitely didn't give it a chance, right? That's the truth of the matter. The players didn't give it a chance. I never tried using it.
It was only MBK had that little stint where he just kept rocking it the whole time.
And the thing is, sure, it's going to be really hard to see. Like, let's say, so the original price was $3,500, and now it's down to $3,150, which is only $50 more for the M4 for those of you playing at home. If you brought it in between those two price points, if you made it say $3,350, right, then you have to obviously invest a little bit more money. Maybe you're not being able to get that flash, or you're going to have to maybe go without a diffuse kit or something along those lines. But I actually think that's kind of what you want, because the first gun round of the game, I don't want to see fucking 3 cunts with Augs or Kriegs. I want to see people with M4s. And then when your economy stabilizes to a point where you're 6 rounds into the game, you've won 4 out of the 6 and you're on a bit of a streak, and then you die, and then you can go, okay, well, fuck, I got lots of money. Maybe I'll buy the Aug now. Like, the Aug needs to be better than the M4. I don't think nerfing it down to a point of being similar to the M4 is the answer. I think the price point means that it's a decision that you can make in mid to late round Counter-Strike depending on your economy, because it is better. You just need the financials to do so. Plus, the reason that I gave before, if you decide that you just want to be a fucking heads-on Counter-Strike player glued to your crosshair because you're mechanically a fucking monster, you might pick the Aug over going for utility for map territory because you want to take the duels. Maybe certain teams, that you're versing have a different playstyle where you can take more aggressive angles, and you don't necessarily need to push them back with utility. This adds an extra level of chess to the game, whereas I think doing what you suggested, Striker, by nerfing the gun, it's going to just go, if these things cost a similar amount of money, and now the M4 is clearly better than the Aug, why would I buy the Aug ever?
But that's what I'm saying, right? You have to be very careful about how you adjust it, right? So that it doesn't become underpowered as fuck. Because that's what happens. The problem is that's what happens every time you adjust the gun. Like, look at what happened. Okay, with the season, I guess that's the only Yeah, Tech 9 would be a good one. But with the season, actually, I guess that's the only outlier where it didn't really help. It's just like for a time, people thought the season was useless. But then like a month or two later, people realized, oh, okay, it's actually not. It's still pretty good. But like basically every gun that ever got adjusted, that ever got nerfed, just completely exited competitive play.
I think one of the things is with these changes, it feels like Valve always has a clear goal of like how they want the weapon to be used. Like the Tech 9, they nerfed a lot of things, but they left like the running accuracy, like one bullet running accuracy was still good, but like the rate of fire is now shit or whatever. But on paper, it looked like, oh, this could still be used, but in game, it just doesn't work. It's just so weird. And the reason why I think they won't do what you said with the Aug and Krieg, as I guess they will follow the same suit, if they just like put down the fire rate and it's a gun that is better long range and for tapping and stuff like that, it's literally just an M4A1S with a scope. It's the same thing. So that kind of, I don't know, doesn't make sense to me. It kind of fits in the same category.
I get the point, but like look at beforehand. By the way, Sponge, it was 3.3 for the.
Why did I think it was 3,500?
I thought
was it 3,501.6?
I'm looking at it now on Reddit. Not Reddit, on Counterstrike.wikia, and it's got in-game the Aug is a CT exclusive assault rifle and the most expensive assault rifle for the CTs it's got 3,500.
1.6.
1.6 because they have a lot of stats.
There's a better one. Yeah, I think there's like an asterisk next to it saying CS:GO, and it's gonna say 3.3 because
that shows you how much I bought the gun.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, it was 3.3 for the Aug and 3. What was it? 1.5 I think for the Krieg. Was it 3.15? That feels like a little bit too much. I'm not sure. I literally just checked it and forgot what the fuck.
Was that Krieg 3,000?
What?
I don't know what you're talking
about. No, 3.3 was the Aug, but the Krieg was a little bit less. 3.1, I think.
I think it was 3,000.
Was it 3,000? It could have been. Anyway, what the?
What?
Okay, that did not fit at all. I have no idea what just happened. Why?
All right. I was going to suggest Lucas gets a raise, but no, we're just going to fire him and get someone else.
That's why I think it's not going to help that it let's say it goes back to 3.3. I think people would just go back to the M4.
3.2. Then it's like a
that's slightly different. Could have been. I could see that happening. I guess.
Whatever.
Not sure if that's enough of a difference.
Or
I guess.
To, I don't know, 3,250 or whatever, something. Yeah, we'll see. But I think we can agree that after the major, something will be changed with the Aug and the Krieg.
Definitely.
Yeah, something.
I mean, at this rate, like, okay, iBUYPOWER Masters could just, for all we know, it could be an outlier, but it's probably not going to be because of just how many more players, and even out of the top teams, right? Look at Liquid. They just started fucking buying it. Basically, everybody is buying it now, or prioritizing the Aug. So, and even playing with the Krieg, the Krieg actually didn't get that much love towards the end of the year. It was mostly the Aug that rose a lot, and some people played with the Krieg, namely Kerrigan, Chris J, and Elish.
Yeah, I made some stats in Chicago. They might be handy here.
I mean, I even wrote an article about it. I was actually posting it about the numbers, but with the Krieg, it just wasn't. It was fairly marginal. It was just like maybe like 2% of all kills or something, versus like fucking 20-something% of the AK. So that's the thing. Like the Krieg hasn't really gotten that much, but like at least judging by iBUYPOWER, feels like even that is getting a little bit more.
Well, we'll have to wait and see then, boys.
Yep.
We'll have to wait and see. But that is the end of episode 3. Any final thoughts from any of you that you want to kind of drop in there? Starting with you, Prof. Anything you want to add to your terrible decision making on best of 5s?
Only best of 3s max. More best of 1s. The iBUYPOWER victory was outlier and not legit.
Lucas, we're getting a new person for this show. You might have to jump in. Get rid of this guy.
Do we have a date for the next one?
Chad will find out, and you can say it on the last bit. Because Striker, it's your time to say the last thing.
It was next Thursday?
I think we moved to actually to Thursday. Yeah.
Stop discussing the fucking date. Let Striker say what he's going to say. Chad can tell us when the next show is going to be. Boom.
Was Striker saying something?
I was just saying that it was the Thursday the 31st.
Oh, okay. There you go. Happy days. Happy days. Chad, any final words?
A big break.
Now let's just watch some more really good Counter-Strike tomorrow.
Oh, yes. Let's see it go down. All right, well, thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll be back on Thursday, the 31st of January. We'll have a lot to break down. We'll see what other stuff is coming up and most likely discuss what's going to be happening ahead of the major. Wait and see, and keep tuning in to HLTV.org. This has been HLTV Confirmed, and we'll see you guys later.